Hi guys, tonight we drift quietly into the world of a medieval castle during the Great Frost. The sun is sinking behind the hills, the air is turning very cold. It feels like ice against your cheeks. The wind is coming off the fields like a cold river, finding every gap in your clothes. You can hear the dry grass snapping under your heavy boots as you walk. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you want to let me know where you are listening from and what time it is where you are, I always love seeing those little snapshots of the world. Now, dim the lights and let the story begin. You are walking along a narrow path. The ground beneath your feet is as hard as a stone. There is no mud today, only frozen earth that has turned into iron. Every step you take makes a sharp, cracking sound. It is the sound of the world freezing solid. Around you, the trees look like skeletons. Their branches are bare and white with frost. The sky above is a deep dark grey, the colour of a lead pipe. You know that soon the stars will come out, but they will not bring any heat. They will look like tiny chips of ice in the black sky. In front of you, the castle stands on a high hill. It looks like a giant grey beast, sleeping in the cold. The stone walls are thick and tall. They were built to keep out armies, but tonight they are trying to keep out the wind. You see the high towers reaching up into the cold air. There is no smoke coming from the small windows yet, only from the main chimneys. The castle looks solid and strong, but you know that stone gets very cold. It holds the chill of the winter inside it, like a box of ice. As you walk closer, you feel the wind pick up. It hums a low, lonely tune through the cracks in the rocks. You pull your heavy wool cloak tighter around your shoulders. The wool is thick and rough, but it is your best friend right now. It smells a little bit like wet sheep and wood smoke. This is a simple historical fact. In the Middle Ages, wool was the most important thing for staying alive in the winter. Everyone, from the poorest farmer to the richest lord, wore wool. It was the only thing that could keep a person warm even when it got damp. You reach the bottom of the castle hill. The path turns into a steep climb. Your breath comes out in big, white clouds. Each breath looks like a ghost that disappears into the dark. You stop for a moment to rest. You look down at your hands. You are holding a horn lantern. This is a clever tool made from a small wooden frame with thin sheets of cow horn instead of glass. The horn has been scraped so thin that the light from the small candle inside can shine through. It gives off a soft yellow glow. It is not very bright, but it is enough to see the path. The lantern feels slightly warm in your hand, and you find yourself holding it close to your chest. You look up at the great stone gates of the castle. They are made of heavy oak wood and banded with thick strips of black iron. The gates are closed now to keep the heat in and the wolves out. You see the bridge that crosses the deep ditch around the walls. The wood of the bridge is covered in a white layer of hoarfrost. It looks like someone has sprinkled salt over everything. You walk across the bridge, and your boots make a hollow, thumping sound. It is a lonely sound in the quiet night. The Great Frost has been here for many weeks. This was a time in history when the winters were so cold that even the big rivers would freeze over completely. People could walk across the water as if it were a road. You think about the birds that have flown away and the animals hiding deep in the burrowed earth. Everything is waiting for the sun, but the sun is far away. You reach the small door set into the big gates. You knock on the wood. The sound is flat and hard. You wait. The sound is flat and fast is very deep. There are no insects buzzing. There are no birds singing. There is only the sound of your own heart beating and the wind whistling around the corner of the tower. Take a moment to just listen to that silence. It is a heavy silence that feels like a blanket over the world. Finally, you hear the sound of a heavy iron bolt being pushed back. The small door creaks open. A puff of air comes out from inside the castle. It is not warm, but it is not as sharp as the wind outside. You step through the door and move into the outer courtyard. The walls here are very high, and they block up most of the wind. The air feels still here. It is a bit like being inside a giant stone bowl. You look around the courtyard. The ground is covered in straw to help people walk without slipping on the ice. The straw is yellow and dry, and it crunches under your boots. You see a few torches flickering in iron rings on the walls. The fire from the torches is orange and bright. It casts long, dancing shadows against the grey stone. The smell of burning pitch and wood fills the air. It is a strong, sharp smell that reminds you of safety. The castle feels very big and very old. You look up at the windows high above. Some of them have small pieces of glass, but most are just narrow slits in the stone. Those slits are there so archers could shoot out, but now they just let in the biting cold. You see a light in one of the high windows. It is a soft, flickering orange light. That is where the Lord's bedroom is. That is where you are going. You know that inside those thick walls, people are huddling around fires, trying to stay warm during this long, frozen night. You walk toward the main door of the great hall. This is the heart of the castle. It is where everyone eats and where the big fire stays lit all day. The stone steps leading up to the door are worn down in the middle from hundreds of years of people walking on them. You feel the history of the place in every stone. This castle has stood through many frosts, and it will stand through this one too. As you reach the door, you take one last look back at the dark courtyard. The stars are starting to poke through the grey clouds. They look very far away. The world outside is a place of ice and shadow. But you are moving toward the light. You are moving toward the fire. You reach out and push the heavy door open. The hinges groan, and a wave of sound and smell hits you. It is the sound of people talking softly and the smell of roasting meat and old wood. You step inside and close the door behind you. You lean your back against the wood for a second. You are inside now. The stone walls are between you and the great frost. You feel a tiny bit of the bite leave your skin. You look down at your horn lantern. The candle is still burning, a small steady flame. You blow it out, and a tiny ribbon of grey smoke curls up into the air. You are ready to begin your walk through the castle. You are ready to see how the people of the night shift kept the world moving while the sun was hidden. You move away from the door and start to walk across the wide floor of the great hall. The floor is covered in green rushes, which are long-dried plants from the river. They feel soft and springy under your feet. They help to keep the cold of the stone floor away from your leather soles. The hall is very large. The ceiling is so high that it is lost in the shadows. You see the big wooden beams holding up the roof. They are black with the soot of many fires. In the center of the room, there is a large hearth. The fire there is burning low now. It is mostly glowing red coals with a few blue flames dancing on top. You walk past it and feel a brief flash of heat on your legs. It feels wonderful, but it disappears as soon as you move away. You are heading for the spiral stairs in the corner. These stairs will take you up into the private parts of the castle. The stairs are made of cold, hard stone. There is no rug here. There is no fire here. This is the part of the journey where the draft lives. The draft is like a cold snake that winds its way up the stairs, looking for any warmth to steal. You wrap your cloak even tighter. You can feel the cold stone through your boots now. Each step is a bit of a struggle. The stairs are narrow and steep. You have to put your hand on the wall to stay steady. The stone feels damp and freezing. It is like touching a block of ice from a pond. You keep moving, one step at a time, going higher and higher into the tower. You are leaving the noise of the great hall behind. Now it is just you and the sound of the wind outside the thick walls. You think about the Lord who lives here. He has all the gold and all the power, but tonight he is just a man who wants to be warm. The cold does not care if you are a king or a peasant. It tries to get into everyone's bones. But the Lord has tricks to stay warm. He has things that the people outside do not have. He has the room within a room. You are curious to see it. You want to see the big bed and the heavy curtains. You want to see the copper pans and the thick rugs. You reach the top of the stairs. There is a heavy wooden door in front of you. It is made of solid oak and has a big iron handle. You take a breath. The air here is very thin and very cold. You reach out your hand and grab the iron handle. It is so cold that it almost feels like it burns your skin. You turn the handle and push. The door opens slowly, and you step into the Lord's private chambers. This is where the real battle against the great frost happens. This is where the night shift is at its most quiet and its most warm. As you stand by the heavy door, you look back down at the great hall you just walked through. It is a very big room, the biggest in the whole castle. In the daylight, this room is full of noise. You would hear people shouting, dogs barking, and the sound of metal hitting metal. But now, in the middle of the great frost, the room feels different. It feels like a giant stone cave that is slowly turning into a block of ice. The warmth from the day is drifting away, floating up toward the high wooden roof where the shadows are thick and dark. You look at the floor of the hall. It is covered in a thick layer of dried plants called rushes. People also put sweet-smelling herbs like lavender or mint in with the rushes. During the day, when people walk on them, the herbs break and smell nice. But now the rushes are cold and damp. They do not smell sweet anymore. They smell like wet earth and old dust. You can see the long shadows of the empty wooden tables and benches. They look like strange, thin animals, standing still in the dark. In the very center of the room is the great hearth. This is not like a fireplace in a wall. It is just a big stone circle on the floor where the fire burns. This is a simple historical fact. In the old days, the fire was in the middle of the room so everyone could sit around it. The smoke would just float up and find its way out through a hole in the roof called a louver. But tonight, the fire is almost gone. It has been a long day, and the wood has burned down to glowing red bits. You see a servant moving quietly near the fire. He is part of the night shift, the people who stay awake while the rest of the world sleeps. He is carrying a large metal lid. This lid is very important. It is called a curfew. That is a strange word, but it comes from a French word that means cover the fire. This is your microhistory detail for tonight. The curfew is a big rounded piece of metal with a handle. The servant places it over the red coals. This keeps the sparks from jumping out and starting a fire while people are sleeping. It also keeps the coals hot so they can start the fire again easily in the morning. The servant moves slowly. His breath also makes clouds in the air, just like yours did outside. He is wearing many layers of old wool. He looks tired and cold. He finds a spot on the floor near the edge of the hearth and curls up. He is not the only one. Along the walls, you see many other people sleeping on the floor. These are the servants and the guards. They do not have bedrooms of their own. They just find a space on the rushes, wrap themselves in a single thin blanket, and try to sleep. They huddle together to share the heat of their bodies. Take a moment to look at the room now. The fire is covered. The light is very dim. The only sound is the soft breathing of the sleeping people and the occasional pop of a log under the metal cover. The great hall is so big that the cold seems to be watching from the corners. It is waiting for the last bit of heat to leave the stones. You can feel the chill rising from the floor. Even though you are higher up on the stairs now, you can feel the great hall pulling the warmth out of your skin. It is a strange thing about stone. Stone is very strong and it can last for 1,000 years, but it has no heart. It does not stay warm on its own. It takes a long time to heat up, and it loses that heat as soon as the sun goes down. In a winter like this one, the stone walls feel like they are sucking the life out of the air. You see a small dog curled up near the sleeping servant. The dog is a little brown thing with rough hair. It is shivering in its sleep. Even the animals feel the great frost. The dog tucks its nose under its tail to keep its face warm. You wish you could give the dog a blanket, but in this time blankets are very expensive and hard to make. Most people and animals just have to be tough. They have to survive the night by being strong and staying close together. The windows high up in the hall are just dark holes. There is no glass in them to keep the wind out. Instead, there are thick wooden shutters, but the wind still finds the tiny cracks. You can hear it whistling. It sounds like a high, thin voice singing a sad song. The wind brings the smell of the frozen river and the deep woods into the hall. It reminds everyone that the world outside is a dangerous place right now. As you stand there, you think about how lucky the Lord is. He does not have to sleep on the floor in the rushes. He does not have to listen to the wind coming through the big hall. He has his own room high up in the tower. He has a room where the walls are covered and the bed is like a small house. You feel a little bit of guilt, but also a lot of hope. You want to see that warmth. You want to feel what it is like to be safe from the great frost. The great hall is now almost completely dark. The orange glow from the edges of the metal curfew lid is the only light left. It casts a soft red circle on the floor. It looks like a small island of heat in a sea of cold stone. You turn your eyes away from the hall and look back at the door in front of you. The air here is even colder because the wind is hitting the tower from all sides. The tower is like a finger of stone held up in the freezing wind. You think about the night shift again. There are guards walking on the walls outside right now. Their hands are probably numb and their noses are probably red. They are looking out into the dark, watching for any sign of trouble. But the only enemy tonight is the cold. The great frost is an enemy that you cannot fight with a sword. You can only hide from it. You can only build a fire and hope it lasts until the sun comes up. The silence in the castle is very heavy. It is not a scary silence, but it is a serious one. It is the silence of survival. Every person in this castle is doing their best to get through the night. The servants on the floor, the guards on the walls, and the Lord in his bed. They are all waiting for the morning. They are all waiting for the frost to break. You put your hand back on the iron handle of the Lord's door. You can feel the weight of the wood. It is thick and strong. It was made to give the Lord privacy, but tonight it is his shield. It is the thing that stands between the drafty, cold hall and the warm room within a room. You take a deep breath, and you can feel the cold air go deep into your chest. It feels crisp and clean, but also very sharp. You think about the history of this place. This great hall has seen many winters. It has seen many fires burn down to nothing. It has seen many people sleep on its floors. Each stone has a story, but tonight the story is just about the cold. The story is about how people find a way to stay warm when the world turns to ice. You are part of that story now. You are the one watching the night. You are the one who sees the fire go out and the frost move in. You take one last look at the red glow of the hearth. You see a tiny puff of smoke escape from under the metal lid. It drifts up, turning into a grey ghost in the dark, and then it is gone. The hall is quiet. The castle is sleeping. You turn the handle and the door moves. You leave the great hall behind, and you step into the next part of the night. You are moving closer to the warmth. You are moving closer to the heart of the castle's winter secret. The great frost is still outside, but you are moving away from it, one step at a time, into the quiet dark of the tower. You leave the great hall behind, and step into the opening of the stone tower. The air changes immediately. In the hall, there was at least the memory of a fire, but here, there is only the cold. The tower is like a giant hollow tree made of rock. The walls are very thick, sometimes as thick as 3 people standing side by side. You might think that thick walls would keep the heat in, but in the great frost, the stone acts like a sponge for the cold. It soaks up the freezing air from the outside and holds it tight. You put your foot on the first step. The stairs are narrow and made of grey stone. They do not go straight up like the stairs in a modern house. They curve around and around in a tight circle. This is called a spiral staircase. You have to be careful where you put your feet, because the stairs are shaped like pieces of a pie. They are very thin near the middle and wider near the wall. You keep your body close to the outer wall where there is more room to stand. The stone wall feels rough under your hand. You can feel the little lines and marks left by the men who built this tower hundreds of years ago. They used hammers and chisels to shape each block. You think about those men working in the sun and the rain to make this place strong. Now, their work is what protects the Lord from the winter, but it also feels very lonely. The stone is so cold that it makes your fingertips tingle. It is a dry, biting cold that seems to go right through your skin and into your bones. As you go up, you see a small slit in the wall. This is a narrow window, just a few inches wide. It was made for archers to shoot arrows out of if the castle was ever attacked. But tonight, there are no enemies outside, only the wind. This is a simple historical fact. These windows did not have glass in them because glass was very hard to make and very expensive. Instead, they were just open to the sky. Sometimes people would stretch a piece of dried animal skin over the hole to stop the wind, but the great frost is strong. It tears at anything in its way. You move closer to the slit and feel a sudden blast of air. It is the draft. The draft is just a small, sharp wind that finds its way through a gap. This draft smells like ice and old snow. It whistles as it squeezes through the narrow stone opening. It catches the edges of your wool cloak and makes it flutter. For a moment, it feels like the tower is breathing. The castle takes in the cold air through these small holes and exhales it down the stairs. You look at the way the stairs turn. They go up and to the right, curving in a clockwise direction. This was a very clever way to build. If an enemy tried to fight their way up the stairs, they would usually hold their sword in their right hand. But because the stairs curve this way, the wall would get in their way, making it hard to swing their sword. The person at the top, the defender, would have plenty of room to move. It is a small detail, but it shows how people were always thinking about safety, even when they were building a set of stairs. The light from the great hall is gone now. It is very dark in the stairwell. You have to feel your way along. You see a small iron spike sticking out of the wall at eye level. This is called a pricket. This is your microhistory detail for this part of the walk. A pricket is a simple tool used to hold a candle. Instead of a cup to put the candle in, it is just a sharp metal point. A servant would push a thick candle made of animal fat onto the spike. The fat, called tallow, would smell a bit like a cooking pot when it burned. Right now, the candle on this pricket has burned out. There is only a little lump of cold, hard wax left on the iron. You stop for a moment on the stairs. Your legs are starting to feel heavy from the climb. This is a good place to just be still. Listen to the tower. Away from the people in the hall, you can hear the real sounds of the castle. You hear the stones groaning as the frost makes them shrink just a tiny bit. You hear the wind howling around the top of the tower, sounding like a wild animal. It is a very big sound, but it feels far away. Inside this stone tube, you are safe, even if you are cold. The silence here is not empty. It is full of the weight of the stone and the history of the night. You take a deep breath. The air is so cold that you can feel it in the back of your throat. It tastes clean and sharp. You start to move again, one step at a time. Your boots make a dull clink on the stone. Plink, plink, plink. It is a steady rhythm that helps you keep going. You pass another arrow slit, and another rush of cold air hits your face. You pull your hood up over your head. The wall feels soft against your ears, and it helps to muffle the sound of the wind. The tower feels like it goes on forever. In the dark, you lose track of how high you have climbed. You think about the night shift workers who have to run up and down these stairs all night long. There are the men who carry the firewood, the men who carry the water, and the guards who change places on the roof. They do not have soft shoes or warm lights. They know every bump and every crack in these stones by heart. They move through the dark like shadows. You think about the great frost again. They say that in the village below the castle, the milk has frozen inside the pails. They say the birds are falling out of the trees because their wings are too cold to flap. It is a hard time for the world. But here, inside the tower, the stone is a shield. It is a cold shield, but it is a strong one. It stands between you and the endless white winter outside. You reach a small landing where the stairs level out for a second. There is a wooden door here, but it leads to a small room for the guards. You keep going up. You are looking for the very top, where the Lord's room is. As you get higher, you notice that the air feels a little bit different. It is still cold, but there is a hint of something else in it. It is the very faint smell of wood smoke. It is not the smoky smell of the great hall, which was thick and heavy. This is a lighter smell, like a high-quality wood burning in a clean fireplace. You know you are getting close. The stairs seem to brighten just a little bit. There must be a light somewhere above you. You find that you are walking a little faster now. The thought of a fire and a warm bed is very exciting when you have been in the dark and the cold for so long. Your hand on the wall feels a little less numb. The stone is still cold, but your mind is focused on the heat that is waiting for you. You take the last few steps of the spiral. The stairs end at a wide, flat area. The floor here is not bare stone. It is covered in heavy wooden planks of oak. The wood feels much better under your boots than the stone did. It does not ring with that cold, hard sound. It has a deeper, warmer thud. You stand there for a moment, catching your breath. You look back down into the dark hole of the stairs. It looks like a long way down. The draft is still here, but it feels weaker. The wooden floor and the heavy door in front of you help to block it. You look at the door. It is beautiful. It is made of dark wood and has been polished until it shines. This is the entrance to the Lord's chamber. You have climbed through the cold, through the dark, and past the wind. You have survived the stairs of the tower. Now you are standing at the edge of the room within a room. You can see a thin line of orange light coming from under the door. It looks like a line of gold on the dark floor. You can hear the soft crackle of a fire. It is a happy sound. It is the sound of safety. You reach out your hand, ready to leave the cold tower behind. You are ready to see how a lord sleeps when the world is turning to ice. The great frost is still out there, pressing against the walls. But for now, you have found the way inside. You stand before the heavy door of the lord's bedroom. Your hand is still resting on the iron handle, which feels like a piece of ice against your palm. But just behind this wood, things are different. You can feel a tiny bit of heat leaking through the cracks around the doorframe. It is just enough to tell your body that the climb is over. You take a slow breath, and for the first time since you entered the castle, the air does not hurt your nose. It feels softer. You pull on the iron door ring. This is your micro-history detail for this part of the night. The iron door ring is a heavy dark circle of metal. It was made by the castle blacksmith, who spent hours hitting the red-hot iron with a hammer to make it perfectly round and strong. It is not smooth like the metal we have today. It has little pits and bumps on it, showing where the hammer fell. It is held to the door by a thick iron bolt that goes all the way through the oak wood. When you turn it, you feel the weight of the metal moving against the wood. It makes a low, grinding sound that feels very old and very safe. This is a simple historical fact. Doors in these high tower rooms were often built quite small and low. You might have to duck your head a little bit to get inside. They did this for two reasons. First, a small door is easier to defend if an enemy gets into the tower. Second, and more importantly for tonight, a small door keeps the heat in. A big, grand door would let all the warm air escape every time it was opened. In the great frost, every little bit of warmth is like gold. You want to keep it trapped inside the room. You push the door open. It is very heavy, made of two thick layers of oak pinned together with iron nails. As the door swings back, a wave of orange light spills out into the dark hallway. It hits your face, and you feel a sudden, wonderful glow on your skin. It is like the first day of spring after a long, grey winter. You step inside and close the door behind you. You make sure the latch clicks into place. You even slide a wooden bar across the door. Now you are truly inside the room within a room. The first thing you notice is the light. It is not the bright, harsh light of a torch or a big fire. It is a soft, dancing glow that comes from the fireplace and a few thick candles. The light is the colour of honey. It makes everything in the room look warm and soft. The shadows are not scary here. They are long and slow, moving gently across the walls as the fire breathes. You take a moment to just stand still. You are no longer in the cold. You are no longer in the wind. Listen to the room. It is very quiet, but it is not silent. There is the steady, happy sound of the fire. It goes click, pop, crackle. It sounds like someone is softly clapping their hands. There is the very faint sound of a candle guttering, which is the tiny noise a flame makes when it hits a bit of wax. The wind is still outside, but here it sounds very far away. It is just a low hum against the thick stone walls. You are safe. You are warm. You can feel like your muscles start to let go of the tightness they held all through the climb. The room smells wonderful. It does not smell like the great hall, which was full of the scent of old grease and too many people. This room smells like beeswax and dried herbs. There are little bundles of lavender and mint tucked into the corners to keep the air sweet. You can also smell the wood burning in the hearth. It is the smell of oak, which is a very clean, sweet-smelling wood. It reminds you of a forest in the autumn. You look around the chamber. It is not a huge room, and that is a good thing. A smaller room is much easier to keep warm than a big one. The floor is made of wide wooden planks. They have been polished with beeswax until they shine like dark water. Unlike the stone floor in the hall, this wood does not steal the heat from your feet. It feels solid and kind. In the corner, you see a large stone fireplace. It is much smaller than the one in the great hall, but it is built into the wall. This is a big change in history. Instead of the smoke just floating around the room, it goes up a chimney. This means the air in this room is clear and easy to breathe. The fire is burning brightly. The logs are thick and have been drying for a long time, so they burn hot and slow. You see the red glow of the coals at the bottom, which is where the real heat lives. You move a little closer to the fire. You can feel the heat hitting your legs. It feels so good that it almost makes you want to cry. You hold out your hands and the orange light shines through your fingers. You watch the skin on your hands turn from a cold, pale blue back to a healthy pink. The frost is being pushed away. It is being defeated by the fire and the thick walls. You look at the walls of the room. You cannot see the bare stone here. Every inch of the wall is covered with something. There are heavy cloths and wooden panels. This is part of the secret of staying warm. The Lord knows that stone is a thief. It tries to steal the heat from the air. So, he has covered the stone with things that hold the heat. It is like the room is wearing its own wool cloak. You see a small table near the bed. On it sits a silver cup and a small plate with some bread and cheese. This was the Lord's night void, a small snack people took before sleeping to keep their bellies warm. A full stomach helps the body stay warm during a long, cold night. The bread looks dark and crusty, and the cheese is a hard yellow wedge. It is simple food, but in this room, it looks like a feast. The room feels heavy. That is the only way to describe it. Everything in here is made of thick wood, heavy cloth, or solid stone. It feels like a place that was built to last forever. It feels like a place where the great frost cannot win. You feel a sense of peace that you didn't have outside. The night shift is still working out. There the guards are still freezing, and the servants are still huddling. But in here, the world has slowed down. You think about the people who made this room ready for the Lord. A servant had to carry those heavy oak logs up all those stairs. Another servant had to polish the floor and light the candles. They worked hard so that this one room could be a sanctuary, a holy place of warmth in a world of ice. You are the watchman of this warmth now. You are the one who sees the care that went into every detail. You look toward the center of the room. There, you see the most important thing of all. It is the big bed. But it does not look like a regular bed. It looks like a small house made of wood and velvet. It has a roof and thick curtains that are pulled back just a little bit. This is the heart of the room within a room. Everything else in this chamber, the fire, the wall cloths, the wooden floor, is all there just to protect this one spot. You take a few steps toward the bed. Your boots make a soft rhythmic sound on the polished wood. Thump, thump, thump. It is a very different sound than the clink on the stone stairs. It is a warm sound. You feel like you are walking on something that is alive. The beeswax on the floor makes the wood feel slightly grippy under your soles. As you get closer to the bed, you notice the height of it. It sits very high off the floor. This is also a clever trick. The coldest air in a room always sits near the floor. By building the bed high up, the Lord stays in the warmer air that floats near the ceiling. It is a simple way to stay a few degrees warmer without needing more wood for the fire. Everything in this room has a purpose. Nothing is just for show. You look at the fire one more time before you move toward the bed. A log shifts and settles, sending a small cloud of golden sparks up the chimney. They look like tiny stars. For a second, you remember the cold, distant stars you saw outside. They were beautiful, but they were heartless. This fire is different. It is a friend. It is a living thing that is fighting the great frost on your behalf. You feel a deep sense of gratitude for this room. You feel lucky to be out of the wind. You realize that in the Middle Ages, warmth was not something you just turned on with a switch. It was something you had to build, piece by piece. You had to cut the wood, carry the logs, weave the cloth, and build the stone walls. Warmth was a craft. It was a skill, and this room is a masterpiece of that skill. You are ready now to see the bed more closely. You are ready to see the velvet and the wool. You are ready to understand how someone can sleep through a night that is cold enough to freeze a river solid. You take one last look at the door you came through. It is shut tight. The wooden bar is strong. The great frost is on the other side, and it is going to stay there. You turn back to the orange light and the soft bed, feeling the weight of the night beginning to pull at your eyes. You are safe. You are warm. The watch continues, but it is a quiet watch now. You move slowly toward the fireplace. It is the most important part of the room right now. Without it, the great frost would find its way into every corner of this chamber. The fireplace is built right into the thick stone wall. It is very big, much larger than the fireplaces we see in houses today. You could almost stand up inside the opening if the fire were not there. The stones used to build it are large and heavy. They are grey and brown, and they have been fitted together so tightly that you can barely see the lines between them. Above the opening, there is a big piece of wood called a mantel. It is a thick beam of oak that has been carved with pretty patterns of leaves and vines. The wood is dark and smooth, and it catches the orange light from the flames. You look down at the floor of the fireplace. It is made of flat, red bricks. Sitting on these bricks are two heavy metal stands. This is your microhistory detail for tonight. These stands are called andirons, but most people just call them fire dogs. They are made of black iron and have two long legs and a bar that sticks out. They look a bit like little iron dogs sitting very still in the heat. Their job is very clever and very simple. They hold the big logs up off the floor of the fireplace. This is important because it lets the air move under the wood. Fire needs to breathe, just like you do. By lifting the logs, the fire dogs help the flames stay bright and strong. If the logs just sat in the ash, the fire might choke and go out. You see the iron of the fire dogs glowing a dull, dark red, where the heat is the strongest. This is a simple historical fact. Having a fireplace like this with a chimney was a very special thing for a long time, as you remember from the Great Hall. People just had a fire in the middle of the room. The smoke would fill the air and make your eyes sting, before it eventually floated out of a hole in the roof. But here in the Lord's room, the chimney takes all the smoke away. It draws the grey clouds up and out of the castle. This means the air in this room stays clean and fresh. It means the Lord can have a big, hot fire without coughing or having red eyes. The chimney was a big change in how people lived. It made rooms feel more like homes and less like smoky caves. You watch the logs burn. They are thick pieces of oak wood. Oak is a very good wood for a winter like this because it burns for a long time. It does not go up in a quick flash like pine or birch. It holds its heat and turns into heavy, glowing coals that stay hot for hours. You see a small bubble of sap coming out of the end of one log. It sizzles and pops as the heat hits it. That is the sound of the tree's last bit of water turning into steam. You hear the crackle and the snap of the wood as it breaks apart. Each time a log breaks, a shower of tiny golden sparks flies up toward the chimney. They look like fireflies dancing in the dark. You can feel the heat now. It is a thick, heavy heat that feels like a warm hand pressing against your chest. It is so strong that you have to take a half step back. Your face feels hot and your eyes start to feel a little bit heavy. The light from the fire is always moving. It is never still. It casts long, shaky shadows on the wooden floor and the walls. The shadows look like they are dancing to the rhythm of the flames. You look at the way the light hits the polished wood of the floor. It looks like the floor is covered in a layer of liquid gold. Take a moment to just watch the center of the fire. The middle of the fire is not orange. It is a very bright, almost white light. That is the hottest part. Below that, there is a pile of glowing red coals. They look like rubies hidden in the ash. They are the heart of the fire. Even if the flames went out right now, those coals would keep the room warm for a long time. They hold the memory of the fire. You find yourself staring into that red glow. It is very peaceful. It is hard to think about anything else when you are looking at the fire. It makes your brain feel quiet and still. The fire smells very good. It is a deep, earthy smell. It reminds you of the forest in the summer, but it also has a sweetness to it. Because the wood has been kept dry in the castle's wood store, it burns very cleanly. There is no bitter, biting smell of wet wood. It is just the pure scent of the oak. It mixes with the smell of the beeswax on the floor and the dried herbs in the corners. It is the smell of safety. It is the smell of a place where the great frost cannot come. You think about the servant who brought this wood here. Earlier in the evening, a man had to walk out into the freezing wind to the woodpile. He had to pick up these heavy logs and carry them in his arms. His hands were probably very cold, and his breath probably looked like thick smoke. He had to carry them through the courtyard, past the freezing guards, and up all those narrow spiral stairs. He did all that work so that this fire could burn right now. This is the night shift at work. They are the people who make sure the fire never dies. They are the ones who keep the room within a room from turning into an icebox. The fireplace is not just a hole in the wall. It is a piece of art. The stone around the opening has been smoothed and polished. You can see the little bits of shell and sand in the stone, caught there millions of years ago when the rock was forming. The stone gets very hot, and it stays hot for a long time. This is another way the room stays warm. The stone acts like a heater. Long after the logs have turned to ash, the stones of the fireplace will still be giving off a gentle warmth. They soak up the heat from the flames, and then slowly let it out into the room. You look at the way the fire changes. One moment, the flames are tall and yellow, reaching up toward the chimney. Then they settle down and turn into small blue flickers that dance on the surface of the coals. The blue flames look like tiny pieces of the sky have fallen into the fire. They move very fast, disappearing and appearing again in a second. You feel very calm watching them. The world outside is a place of white snow and black night, but in here, everything is orange, red, and gold. You move your hands closer to the fire dogs. You can feel the heat radiating off the black iron. The metal is so hot that the air above it seems to wobble and shake. This is called a heat shimmer. It makes the back of the fireplace look like it is underwater. You watch a small bit of grey ash fall from a log. It floats down like a tiny light feather and lands on the red bricks. The ash is very fine, like powder. In the morning, a servant will come and scoop it up with a small metal shovel, but for now, it just adds to the pile of heat. You think about the great frost again. Out there, the stars are cold and the wind is sharp, but here, you are standing in front of a giant's heart. The fire is strong and healthy. It has plenty of wood to eat, and it has the fire dogs to help it breathe. It is winning the fight against the winter. You feel a sense of pride for the fire. It is doing its job well. It is making this room a place where a person can truly rest. You look up at the mantel again. The carvings of the leaves seem to move in the flickering light. They look like they are growing. The wood of the mantel is warm to the touch, but not too hot. It is just right. On top of the mantel, there is a small iron bowl. Inside the bowl, there are some dried orange peels. As the heat from the fire rises, it warms the orange peels, and they release a faint citrus smell into the air. It is a very pretty scent. It is another small detail that makes this room feel special. The fireplace is the sun of this small world. Everything in the room is arranged around it. The chairs, the table, and most importantly the bed, are all placed so they can catch its warmth. It is the source of life in the castle during the winter. Without it, the room within a room would just be a cold stone box. You feel a deep connection to this fire. It is your companion through the night. It is the thing that keeps the shadows away and the cold at bay. You take one more deep breath of the warm, smoky air. You feel your toes getting warm inside your boots. The shivering you felt on the stairs is completely gone. You feel relaxed and safe. The fire has done its work. It has welcomed you into the room and pushed the frost away from your skin. You are ready to look at the rest of the chamber now. You are ready to see the cloths on the walls and the rugs on the floor. But you will always keep one eye on the fire. It is the heart of everything. You turn away from the bright heat, leaving the fire dogs to guard the logs, and you start to explore the soft, shadowed edges of the room. The fire continues to crackle behind you, a steady and comforting sound that follows you as you move. You stand near the fire and take a very deep breath. You pull the air into your chest and let it sit there for a second. The air is not just warm now, it is full of smells. It is a thick, rich scent that tells a story of the forest and the earth. When you are outside in the great frost, the air has no smell at all. It is too cold for smells to move. The ice locks everything away. But here, inside the room within a room, the heat has woken up the scents of the world. The first thing you smell is the oak wood. It is a deep and heavy smell. It smells a bit like the dark soil under a big tree in the middle of a forest. It is a strong, honest scent. It makes you feel like the walls around you are even thicker than they really are. Oak is a hardwood, and it has a very clean way of burning. It does not have that sharp, stinging smell that some woods have. It just smells like strength. You can almost smell the hundreds of years that the tree spent growing in the sun before it became a log in this fireplace. Next, you catch a hint of something sweet. This is the sap inside the wood. As the heat from the fire warms the logs, the sap starts to bubble and turn into steam. The steam carries the sweetness into the air. It smells a bit like honey or dried fruit. This is a simple historical fact. People in the Middle Ages really cared about how their rooms smelled. Because they did not have showers or soap like we do today, they used the smell of the fire to make their homes feel fresh. A good-smelling fire was a sign of a clean and happy house. In the Lord's room, only the best wood is used to make sure the air is as sweet as possible. You move a tiny bit closer to the hearth. You see a small branch that has been tossed onto the coals. It is not oak. It is a different kind of wood. This is your micro-history detail for this part of the night. It is a branch of juniper. Juniper is a small bush with little blue berries. When the needles and the wood of the juniper hit the fire, they make a very special smell. It is a sharp, fresh scent, a bit like the smell of a pine forest after a rain. People would throw a few juniper berries or a small branch into the fire every few hours. They did this because they believed the fresh smell could keep sickness away. They thought that bad air was what made people get a cold or a fever, so they used good air from the juniper to protect themselves. You close your eyes and just breathe. The smell is like a warm blanket for your nose. It is very different from the smell of the great hall downstairs. Down there, the air smelled of too many people, wet dogs and old grease from the kitchen. It was a heavy, dusty smell. But here, the air is light and crisp. The smoke from the fire does not hang in the room. The chimney is doing its job perfectly, pulling the grey clouds up and away. What is left behind is just the spirit of the wood. You feel like the scent is cleaning out your head, making your thoughts feel slow and peaceful. You think about the night shift worker who is the keeper of the wood. This was a man whose whole job was to make sure the castle had enough dry wood for the winter. He would have spent all of the autumn gathering logs and stacking them in a dry place. He had to know which wood was good for cooking and which wood was good for a lord's bedroom. He would have picked out the oak for its heat and the juniper for its smell. He would have handled every single log that is now burning in front of you. You can almost smell the dry dust of the wood store on the logs. As you stand there, you notice another layer of scent. It is the smell of the beeswax candles. They are sitting on the table and in iron holders on the walls. Beeswax has a very soft, sweet smell, like a summer field full of flowers. It is much nicer than the smell of the cheap candles used by the servants. Those cheap candles, called tallow, were made from animal fat. When they burned, they smelled like a frying pan full of old meat. But the Lord only uses the best beeswax. The smell of the wax mixes with the oak and the juniper, creating a scent that is unique to this room. It is the smell of wealth, but more than that, it is the smell of comfort. You can also smell the herbs that are tucked into the room. There are bundles of dried lavender and mint. They are not in the fire, but the warmth of the room makes them release their scent. The lavender is soft and floral, and it is known for helping people feel sleepy. The mint is cool and sharp. These smells are like little notes of music in a song. They come and go as the air moves around the room. You find yourself taking another deep breath, trying to catch every single part of the smell. The smell of the smoke is there too, but it is a very faint and friendly smoke. It is the smell of a campfire in the distance. It is the kind of smell that makes you want to sit down and tell stories. It makes you feel like you are part of something very old. Humans have been sitting around fires and smelling burning wood for thousands and thousands of years. It is a smell that our bodies know very well. It tells our brains that we are safe, that we have a fire, and that the night cannot hurt us. Take another moment to just be still in this fragrant air. You feel the tension leaving your shoulders. The great frost is just a few feet away on the other side of the stone, but it feels like it is on another planet. The smell of the fire creates a wall that the cold cannot cross. It is a wall made of scent and warmth. You realize that the room within a room is not just about the bed or the curtains. It is about the air itself. The Lord has created a small world where the air is always sweet and the fire is always bright. You look at the logs again. One of them has a bit of moss still clinging to its bark. The moss is drying out and turning brown in the heat. It gives off a faint earthy smell, like a damp path in the woods. It reminds you that these logs were once living things. They stood in the wind and the rain. They saw the birds build nests in their branches. Now they are giving up their last bit of life to keep this room warm. It feels like a very generous thing for the wood to do. The scent of the fire is also a bit like a cloth. When the wood is first put on, it smells sharp and fresh. As it burns down into red coals, the smell becomes deeper and more like the earth. You can tell how long the fire has been burning just by using your nose. Right now, the smell is at its best. It is full and rich. It fills every corner of the room, from the high ceiling down to the polished floor. You think about how scent is tied to memory. Years from now, if you ever smell burning oak or crushed juniper, you will remember this night. You will remember the great frost and the way the orange light danced on the walls. You will remember the feeling of the warm air in your lungs. The smell is what stays with you. It is the most powerful part of the experience. You move away from the fireplace now, but the smell follows you. It is on your clothes and in your hair. You carry a little bit of the fire with you as you walk toward the center of the room. The scent is like a guide, leading you away from the cold stone and toward the soft, dark bed. You feel very calm. Your heart is beating slowly and steadily. The night shift is a quiet one in this room. There is no work to be done here, only the work of resting and staying warm. The fire pops one more time, and a fresh wave of juniper scent hits you. It is like a tiny gift from the flames. You smile to yourself. You are no longer the cold watchman who climbed the stairs. You are someone who belongs in the warmth. You are a part of the room within a room. You take one last long breath of the sweet smoky air, and you feel ready for whatever the night brings. The great frost can howl all it wants. You have the smell of the forest and the heat of the oak to keep you company. The watch continues, and the world is small, warm, and very, very sweet. You turn your back to the bright fire and look toward the walls of the room. If you were in any other part of the castle, you would see bare, grey stone. That stone would be cold and damp. It would look dark and hard. But here in the Lord's chamber, the walls look different. They are soft. They are full of colour. They look like they are made of giant, heavy rugs that have been hung from the ceiling to the floor. These are tapestries. That is a big word, but it just means a very large piece of cloth with pictures woven into it. You walk closer to one of the walls. As you move away from the direct heat of the fire, the air feels a little cooler, but it is still very comfortable. You reach out your hand to touch the cloth. It is thick and heavy. It feels a bit like a very old, very strong sweater. This is a simple historical fact. Tapestries were often called the moving walls of kings. This is because a lord could take them down, roll them up, and carry them to another castle if he moved. They were the most expensive things in the room. They cost more than the furniture, and sometimes even more than the castle itself. It took many people many years to weave just one of these cloths. You look at the picture on the tapestry in front of you. In the flickering candlelight, the picture seems to come to life. It shows a forest scene. There are tall green trees with leaves made of many different shades of green thread. There are hunters on horses and small brown dogs running through the grass. This is your microhistory detail for tonight. Look at the collar on the lead dog in the picture. It is stitched with tiny silver threads to look like real metal. In the Middle Ages, people loved their dogs very much. They often gave their best hunting dogs collars made of soft leather or even silver. Seeing this tiny detail in the cloth makes you realize how much care went into making this. Every single thread was put there by a person's hand. You follow the lines of the thread with your eyes. You see how the weaver used dark blue and black wool to create shadows under the trees. They used bright yellow and white to show where the sun would be hitting the leaves, even though it is night and the great frost is outside. This wool makes it feel like it is always autumn or summer inside the room. The colors are deep and rich. They have names like madder red, which comes from a plant root, and woad blue, which comes from a special leaf. These were the only ways to get color back then. Everything came from the earth. As you stand there, you notice something interesting. You put your hand near the bottom of the tapestry, where it touches the wooden floor. You feel a tiny movement of air. The cloth is gently swaying, just a little bit. It is like the wall is breathing. You realize that behind this beautiful cloth, the stone wall is freezing cold. The wind from outside is pushing against the castle, and tiny bits of cold air are squeezing through the cracks in the stone. But the tapestry is doing its job. It acts like a giant blanket for the room. It traps a layer of air between the stone and the cloth. This dead air stays still and helps keep the room warm. Take a moment to just stand in front of the heavy cloth. The room is so quiet that you can hear the wool of the tapestry rubbing against the stone wall behind it. It is a very soft, shushing sound. It sounds like a secret being whispered. The tapestry also helps with the sound of the room. In the great hall, your voice would echo off the hard stone. It would sound loud and sharp. But here, the thick wall soaks up the sound. It makes everything feel muffled and private. It is a very peaceful feeling. It makes you want to speak in a whisper. Even though you are alone, you move your hand along the surface of the picture. You feel the warp and the weft. These are simple words for the threads that go up and down, and the threads that go side to side. The threads that go up and down are thick and strong, like the bones of the cloth. The threads that go side to side are the ones that make the colors and the pictures. You can feel the little bumps where the threads cross each other. It is a very bumpy, earthy texture. It smells a bit like old wool and a tiny bit like the herbs that have been stored near it. You look at another part of the tapestry. This part shows a garden. There are hundreds of tiny flowers woven into the grass. There are lilies, roses, and daisies. Each one is perfect. In the Middle Ages, this style was called thousand flowers. It was meant to remind people of the beauty of nature, even when it was winter outside. When the Lord looks at his walls, he doesn't see the ice and the snow of the great frost. He sees a world that is always in bloom. It is a way of tricking the mind into feeling warmer. If you look at a picture of a sunny garden, you start to feel a little bit of that sun in your heart. You think about the people who made this. They were the night shift of the past in a different way. They sat at big wooden frames for hours and hours, moving their needles in and out. They worked by the light of candles, just like the ones in this room. Their eyes must have been tired, and their fingers must have been sore. They did this so that one day a lord could stay warm in a tower. You feel a great respect for their patience. They didn't have machines to do this for them. They had to be very clever and very slow. The tapestry is very heavy. You're trying to lift the corner of it just a little bit, but it feels like lifting a thick lead sheet. It is held up by big iron hooks driven deep into the stone. The weight of the cloth is part of why it works so well. Because it is so heavy, it doesn't flap around when the wind blows. It just hangs there, solid and steady. It is a shield of wool. You look at the way the light from the fire hits the threads. Some of the threads are made of silk, which is a very smooth and shiny material. The silk catches the light and sparkles, making it look like there is real water in the forest stream or real dew on the flowers. It is very pretty to watch. The light moves across the wall as the fire grows and fades. One moment, a knight's sword is bright, and the next moment it is hidden in shadow. It is like a movie that moves very, very slowly. You feel a sense of comfort being surrounded by these cloths. It makes the room feel small and snug. It is like being inside a giant fabric box. You realize that this is another layer of the room within a room. First, there are the castle walls. Then there are these woolen walls. And soon you will see the bed, which has walls of its own. Humans have always looked for ways to make big spaces feel smaller and safer. We like to feel enclosed when we sleep. We like to know that there is something between us and the big, dark world outside. The great frost is still trying to get in. You can hear a window shutter rattle somewhere far away in the tower. But here, behind the tapestries, the air is still. You think about how many people have stood in this room over the years and looked at these same pictures. They probably felt the same relief that you feel now. They probably touched the same thick wool and wondered at the same tiny silver stitches. The cold is an old enemy, but the tapestry is an old friend. You move a bit further along the wall. You see a tapestry that shows a lady sitting in a chair with a small unicorn next to her. The unicorn is white and has a golden horn. It looks very calm and peaceful. The lady is wearing a long dress made of deep red wool. You look at the folds of the dress in the picture. The weaver managed to make the flat cloth look like it was flowing and soft. It is amazing what people could do with just a needle and some thread. You take one last look at the forest scene. You imagine yourself walking into that green woods, leaving the ice of the great frost behind. You can almost feel the moss under your feet and hear the birds in the trees. The tapestries are not just for keeping the room warm. They are for keeping the soul warm too. They give the eyes something beautiful to look at when the world outside is grey and dead. You step away from the wall and walk back toward the center of the room. Your feet feel soft on the rugs, and the air from the fire is waiting for you. But you will not forget the tapestries. You know now that they are more than just pretty pictures. They are a vital part of the night shift. They are the silent guards that stand against the drafts all night long. They are the reason the Lord can sleep without feeling the breath of the winter on his neck. You feel a little bit more relaxed now, knowing that the walls are on your side. The room is getting readier for the night, and so are you. The watch continues, and the woolen walls are standing strong. You look down at your feet as you walk across the floor. In the great hall downstairs, your boots made a loud, hollow sound on the stone and the thin layer of rushes. But here, the sound is different. It is a soft, muffled thud. That is because the floor is not bare. Underneath you is a thick, heavy rug. In this time, people did not have carpets that covered the whole room from wall to wall. Instead, they used large, rectangular rugs made of wool. These rugs were very precious. They were often brought from far away, from places where the sun shines much hotter than it does here in the great frost. You stop for a moment and wiggle your toes inside your leather boots. Even through the thick soles, you can feel the softness of the rug. It is a very different feeling from the hard, unforgiving stone of the stairs. This is a simple historical fact. Floor rugs were a sign of great wealth. Most people lived their whole lives with only dirt or stone under their feet. To have a rug was to have a piece of luxury. It was like walking on a cloud instead of walking on the frozen earth. You look at the pattern on the rug. It is full of deep reds, dark blues, and warm browns. The light from the fire dances over the wool, making the colors look like they are glowing. The pattern is made of many little squares and triangles that fit together like a puzzle. This is your microhistory detail for this part of the night. Look closely at the edges of the rug. You will see long bits of thread hanging off the ends. These are called fringes. They are not just for decoration. They are actually the ends of the long threads that run through the whole rug. They show that the rug was made by hand on a big wooden frame. A person had to tie thousands of tiny knots to make this one rug. The rug does a very important job in the room within a room. Stone is a thief that steals heat, but wood and wool are friends that keep it. The thick wool of the rug traps the warm air that the fireplace is making. It creates a barrier between the cold wooden floorboards and the air you are breathing. If you were to sit down on this rug, you would feel the warmth of the room held inside the fibers. It is like a second blanket for the room, but this one is for the floor. You take a slow step forward. You notice that the rug is very heavy. It does not slide around when you walk on it, it stays exactly where it was placed. This is because it is made of real sheep's wool, which has a natural weight to it. You can smell the wool. It has a faint, earthy scent, like a warm barn on a summer day. It is a comforting smell. It reminds you of the animals that gave their coats so that people could stay warm during the great frost. Take a moment to just feel the floor under you. The room is so quiet now. You can hear the tiny crinkle of the wool as your boots press down on it. The rug soaks up the sound of your footsteps, making you feel like a ghost moving through the chamber. This silence is part of the night shift. Everything is designed to make the world feel soft and slow. The thick walls, the tapestries, and the rugs all work together to create a space where the winter cannot reach you. You feel very far away from the wind and the ice. You think about the night shift worker who had to clean this rug. It was not an easy job. They could not use a vacuum like we have today. Instead, they had to take the heavy rug outside when the weather was dry. They would hang it over a wooden pole and hit it with a big stick called a rug beater. This would knock all the dust and bits of straw out of the wool. But during the great frost, the rug stays inside. It is too cold to take it out. Instead, they might sprinkle some dried herbs on it and sweep them away with a broom made of twigs. This keeps the rug smelling fresh, even when the windows are shut tight. As you walk, you notice that there is more than one rug. There is a smaller one right in front of the fireplace, and a much larger one that leads toward the bed. The one by the fire is the warmest. It has been soaking up the heat from the coals all evening. You can see the way the light hits the individual loops of wool. It looks like a field of tiny, colorful mountains. You feel a sense of peace looking at it. The floor is no longer a cold, dark place. It is a part of the warmth. You think about how people in the Middle Ages would sometimes sit on these rugs instead of chairs. They would lean against a big cushion and stay close to the fire. It was a very cozy way to spend an evening. They would tell stories or play games with small pieces made of bone or wood. You can almost imagine them sitting there, their faces glowing in the firelight while the great frost howled outside. The rug was the center of their world. You look at the way the rug meets the tapestry on the wall. The two pieces of wool touch each other, making sure there is no gap for the cold to get through. It is like the room is being wrapped up in a giant woolly package. Every layer makes the room feel safer. You feel like you are inside a very large, very warm nest. Your body is finally starting to relax completely. Your hands are warm and your feet are snug. The rug also has a bit of oil in it. This is natural oil from the sheep, called lanolin. This oil helps to keep the wool soft and keeps it from getting ruined by a little bit of water. It also gives the rug a slight shine when the candlelight hits it. You reach down and touch the wool with your fingers. It feels a bit bouncy. It is strong, but it is also kind. It is the perfect thing to have under your feet when the world outside has turned to ice. You take another step toward the bed. The rug under you is the last thing you will touch before you climb into the layers of blankets. It is like a bridge between the fire and the bed. You feel grateful for the sheep, the weavers, and the servants who made this possible. They are all part of the story of how a lord stays warm. They are the people who turned a cold stone tower into a place of comfort. You look back at the fire one more time. The orange light is reflecting off the polished wood of the floor where the rug doesn't reach. But where the rug is, the light is soft and deep. It is like the rug is drinking in the light and the heat, saving it for later. You feel a sense of wonder at how much thought went into every single thing in this room. Nothing was done by accident. Everything has a job to do. You are standing now at the edge of the biggest rug of all. This one leads right to the steps of the great bed. The wool here is even thicker. It feels like walking on deep moss. You are leaving the fireplace behind and moving into the heart of the room within a room. The air is still warm and the scent of the wood and the herbs is all around you. You are ready to see the bed. You are ready to see how the velvet and the wood create the final warmest place in the whole castle. The watch continues and your path is soft and warm. You stand between the warmth of the fireplace and the heavy, colourful tapestries hanging on the walls. You have looked at the pictures and the stories woven into the threads, but now you want to understand how they work. You move closer to the wall, leaving the soft rug behind for a moment. As you get closer to the edge of the large cloth, you feel something change. The air is not as still here. There is a tiny, thin movement of air that feels like a cold finger touching your neck. This is the draft. You reach out your hand and gently pull the edge of the tapestry away from the wall. You only move it a few inches, but that is enough. A rush of freezing air hits your hand. It is so cold that it makes you jump a little bit. It feels like you have opened a door to the winter itself. This is the secret of the room within a room. Behind these beautiful cloths, the castle is still a cold stone tower. The stone walls are freezing. They are damp. They are hard, but the tapestry stands between you and that cold. This is a simple historical fact. Tapestries were the best insulation a lord could buy. In the Middle Ages, they did not have pink foam or fiberglass to put inside the walls like we do now. Instead, they used thick, heavy wool. By hanging the cloth about an inch or two away from the stone, they created a pocket of air. This air does not move much. Because it is trapped, it acts like a shield. The cold from the stone hits the air pocket and stops. The warmth from the fire hits the wall and stays in the room. It is a very clever way to keep a big stone building from feeling like a cave. You look at how the tapestry is held up. This is your micro-history detail for this part of the night. Along the very top of the wall, near the ceiling, there are small iron hooks. These are called tapestry hooks, or sometimes tenterhooks. They are shaped like the letter L and are driven deep into the mortar between the stones. A servant had to climb a tall ladder to hook the heavy wool onto these iron points. You can see the way the wool stretches a little bit where it hangs. It is a very strong material. It has to be, because a tapestry this size can weigh as much as a grown man. If the hooks were not strong, the whole wall of cloth would come crashing down. You let go of the cloth and watch it settle back against the wall. It is so heavy that it does not bounce. It just falls back into place with a soft thud. You look at the way the bottom of the tapestry rests against the floor. There are no gaps. The wool is so thick that it curls slightly on the wood. This stops the draft from crawling across the floor and chilling your feet. It is like the room is wearing a giant heavy coat that goes all the way to the ground. Take a moment to just stand still and look at the wall. Even though you know the cold is right there, just an inch away, you cannot feel it anymore. The room feels solid. The woolen walls make you feel like you are inside a soft box. You hear the wind outside. It is louder now, hitting the tower with a low whoosh. But inside the room, the tapestries do not even move. They are too heavy for the little bits of wind to push. They stay steady, holding the warmth in and keeping the great frost out. You think about the stone behind the cloth. If you could see it, it would be covered in a thin layer of frost or even a bit of ice. The castle swots in the winter. The warmth of the people inside meets the cold of the stone outside, and tiny drops of water form on the rocks. This moisture is bad for the castle and bad for the people, but the wool of the tapestry is very good at dealing with moisture. Wool can soak up a lot of water without feeling wet. It helps to keep the air in the room dry and comfortable. You move your hand along the surface of the wool. It feels rough and a bit hairy. This is because the wool was not combed perfectly smooth before it was spun into thread. It has a natural wild feel to it. You can see the tiny gaps between the threads where the air gets trapped. It is these millions of tiny gaps that make the wool so warm. It is the same reason why a bird fluffs its feathers in the winter. They are making a room within a room for their own bodies. You look up toward the high ceiling. The tapestries go almost all the way to the top. The part of the wall that is not covered by cloth is covered by dark wooden panels. The wood is also a good friend in the cold. It does not get as cold as stone, and it helps to bounce the light of the fire back into the room. The room is a mix of wood, wool, and fire. These are the things that humans have used for thousands of years to fight the winter. They are simple, but they are the best tools we have. You think about the night shift again. You imagine a servant walking around the room earlier in the evening, checking the hooks. They would make sure that no part of the tapestry had slipped. If there was even a small gap, the cold would find it. The draft is like water. It will find any hole and pour through it. The servant's job was to make sure the wool shield was perfect. They are the reason you feel so safe right now. They did the work so the Lord could sleep in peace. The Great Frost is a very strong enemy. It can break rocks and freeze big rivers, but it cannot get past the wool. There is something very satisfying about that. A soft thing like a piece of cloth is stronger than the freezing wind. It shows that being clever is often better than being big and loud. The Lord's room is full of these clever tricks. The high bed, the thick rugs, and these heavy wall cloths all work together. They are a team. You feel a sense of quiet wonder. You realize that you are standing in a very special place. In the Middle Ages, most people lived in houses where the wind came through the walls all night long. They would wake up with frost on their blankets. But here in the tower, The Lord has built a world where the winter does not exist. It is a world made of art and wool. You feel the weight of the night pressing in, but it does not feel heavy. It feels like a hug. You walk away from the wall and back toward the center of the room. You can feel the heat of the fire again. It is much stronger now that you are away from the edge of the tapestry. The fire and the wool are talking to each other. The fire and the wool holds it. You are the one who gets to enjoy the result of their conversation. You feel your heart rate slow down even more. You are getting closer to the bed now. You are getting closer to the deepest part of the warmth. The light from the candles is getting lower. The wax is dripping down the sides of the iron holders, making strange frozen shapes. It looks like little white waterfalls. The room is becoming darker, but the orange glow of the fire is still strong. It paints the tapestries in shades of red and gold. The hunters on the horses and the dogs in the grass look like they're settling down for the night too. The whole world inside the room within a room is preparing for sleep. You take one last look at the edge of the tapestry. You remember the cold you felt when you pulled it back. It makes the warmth you feel now seem even better. It is like drinking a cup of warm milk after being out in the snow. The contrast makes the comfort feel deeper. You are grateful for the thick wool and the iron hooks. You are grateful for the air pocket that stands between you and the great frost. You turn your attention now to the floor. You have walked on the rugs and you have seen the walls. Now you want to see the bed. You want to see the final layer of this warm nest. You move toward the large structure in the middle of the room, feeling the softness of the wool under your boots. The watch continues, and the drafts are all locked away behind the colorful cloths. You are safe, you are warm, and the night is very, very quiet. You walk across the thick woolen rugs, and your eyes look up at the giant structure that sits in the center of the room. This is the four-poster bed. In the Middle Ages, a bed like this was not just a place to sleep. It was a masterpiece of building. It looks like a tiny house made of dark wood, standing on four thick legs. These legs, or posts, are as thick as a young tree. They're carved with beautiful patterns of leaves and vines that match the fireplace mantel. They reach all the way up from the floor to the high ceiling. This is a simple historical fact. The four-poster bed was designed to create a room within a room. Stone castles were so hard to heat that even with a fire, the air in the room could stay very cold. By building a wooden frame around the bed, the Lord could trap his own body heat inside a much smaller space. It is much easier to keep a small box warm than a whole stone chamber. This bed is the final line of defense against the great frost. It is where the Lord goes to hide when the fire starts to burn low in the middle of the night. You move closer to one of the posts. This is your micro-history detail for tonight. Look at the very top of the post. There is a flat wooden roof that covers the entire bed. This is called a tester. In the old days, castle roofs were not always perfect. Sometimes bits of dust, straw, or even a small spider might fall from the wooden beams high above. The tester was built to act like a wooden umbrella. It kept the sleeping lord clean and safe from anything falling from the ceiling. But more importantly, the wood of the tester holds the warmth. Heat rises, and when it hits that wooden roof, it stays right there, hovering over the blankets. You reach out and touch the wood of the bedpost. It is made of oak, just like the floor and the ceiling beams. It feels very solid and heavy. The wood is not cold like the stone walls. It has soaked up the warmth from the fire or evening. It feels smooth and a bit waxy under your fingertips. You can feel the deep grooves where the woodcarver used his tools to make the leaf patterns. You think about how long it must have taken to carve these four giant posts. It was a slow, careful job, done by the light of a small window or a candle. Take a moment to look at the size of the bed. It is much larger than the beds we use today. It is wide and tall. Because it sits so high off the ground, there are two small wooden steps next to it to help the Lord climb in. By being high up, the bed stays away from the puddle of cold air that sits on the floor. The higher you go in the room, the warmer the air becomes. The Lord is literally sleeping in the best air the room has to offer. Everything about this bed is a clever trick to stay cozy. The wood of the bed is dark, almost black. This is because it has been polished for many years with oils and beeswax. The dark wood catches the orange light from the fire and reflects it softly. It makes the bed look like it is glowing from the inside. It looks like a very safe place to be. You feel like the bed is an island of peace in a world of ice. The great frost is outside the castle, the draughts are behind the tapestries, and the cold floors beneath the rugs. But inside these four posts, nothing can hurt you. You look up at the tester again. The underside of the wooden roof is also carved. It has a big circle in the middle with a star shape inside it. It is very pretty to look at. You imagine the Lord lying on his back and looking up at that star before he closes his eyes. It is the last thing he sees every night. It is a quiet, steady thing that never changes, no matter how hard the wind blows outside. It gives him a sense of order and safety in the dark. The bed does not have a metal frame or springs. Instead, under the thick mattress, there are long pieces of strong rope pulled very tight between the wooden sides. These ropes hold up the weight of the person and the blankets. This is where the old saying "sleep tight" comes from. If the ropes were loose, the bed would sag in the middle and be very uncomfortable. A servant, part of the night shift, would use a large wooden key to pull the ropes tight every few days. It was a hard job that needed a lot of strength, but it made sure the Lord had a good night's sleep. You think about the night shift workers again. They are the ones who put this bed together. It came into the room in many pieces and was built right here in the tower. They had to lift the heavy oak posts and the thick wooden tester into place. They had to make sure everything was level and strong. They did this so that the Lord would have a room within a room that would never fall down. You feel a great respect for the people who built this. They were like architects of comfort. The bed smells faintly of the oak wood and the beeswax used to polish it. It also smells like the clean linen sheets that are tucked inside. It is a very fresh, dry smell. It is the smell of a place that is well cared for. You feel your heart rate slowing down as you stand next to it. The bed is like a giant friendly animal waiting for you to rest. It doesn't care about the great frost or the world outside. Its only job is to be warm and soft. You look at the curtains that hang from the tester. They are pulled back right now, held by thick gold ropes. They are made of heavy velvet, the color of a deep red rose. These curtains are the most important part of the room within a room. When they are closed, they turn the bed into a private, warm cocoon. But even with the curtains open, the bed feels like it has its own atmosphere. The air inside the posts feels different than the air in the rest of the room. It feels heavier and stiller. You think about how people in the Middle Ages were never truly alone. The castle was always full of people, even at night. There were guards, servants, and guests everywhere. The four-poster bed was the only place where a lord could have true privacy. Behind those curtains, he was in his own kingdom. He could be himself. He could be warm. He could dream. It was more than just furniture. It was a sanctuary. The light from the fire is starting to fade just a little bit. The shadows around the bed are getting longer. The carvings on the posts look like they're moving in the flickering light. The leaves seem to rustle, and the vines seem to grow. It is a very magical feeling. You feel like you have stepped into a storybook. This is the heart of the night, the quietest time of all. The night watchman is the only one awake, and the bed is ready for the shift to end. You take one last look at the big, sturdy legs of the bed. They look like they could hold up the whole world. They are the anchors of the room. They stand strong against the cold and the dark. You feel a sense of deep calm. You know that soon the final layers of warmth will be revealed. You are ready to see the velvet, the wool, and the warming pans. You are ready to understand the full secret of the medieval night. The watch continues, and the great bed stands waiting, a silent guardian in the orange glow of the fire. You reach out your hand and touch the fabric hanging from the top of the bed. This is not just any cloth. It is heavy velvet, a deep and rich red that looks almost black in the shadows. Velvet is a very special kind of material. If you look closely, you can see that it is made of thousands of tiny, soft hairs standing straight up. This is what makes it feel so fuzzy and smooth at the same time. This is your microhistory detail for this section. In the Middle Ages, velvet was one of the most expensive things a person could own. It was made of silk and took a very long time to weave. A single set of bed curtains like these could cost as much as a small farm. This is a simple historical fact. The bed curtains were the most important part of the room within a room idea. While the fireplace warmed the air in the chamber, the velvet curtains kept that warmth trapped right where the Lord was sleeping. When these curtains are pulled shut, they form a thick wall of fabric. This wall stops any little bit of wind or draft from reaching the pillows. It is like being inside a soft, warm tent. The velvet is so thick that it also blocks out the light. If the fire pops or a candle flickers, the person inside the bed won't see it. They are in their own world of dark, quiet warmth. You run your fingers down the side of the curtain. It feels cool at first, but it quickly warms up from the heat of your hand. The fabric is very heavy. When you push it, It does not fly up like a thin sheet. It moves slowly, like a heavy rug. This weight is good because it means the curtain stays flat against the bed frame. There are no gaps for the cold air to crawl through. You notice that the curtains are held to the top rail by large brass rings. These rings make a soft clink sound as they slide along the wood. It is a sleepy, rhythmic sound. Take a moment to just feel the texture of the velvet. The room is very still. The only sound is the gentle breathing of the fire in the hearth. You can smell the faint scent of the silk threads and the dye used to make the red color. It is a dry, dusty smell that reminds you of old books or a quiet church. The velvet soaks up all the sound in the room. Even your own heartbeat seems to sound softer when you are standing this close to the bed. It is a very private feeling, as if the rest of the castle has completely disappeared. You look at the gold ropes that hold the curtains back during the day. They are thick and twisted with big tassels on the ends that look like golden pineapples. These ropes are also part of the night shift. A servant would come in just before the Lord went to bed and untie these ropes. They would let the heavy velvet fall into place, sealing the bed for the night. You can see the marks on the velvet where the ropes have been tied. It shows that this bed has been used for many years, keeping people safe from many different winters. The great frost is still pushing against the stone walls of the tower. You can hear it hum in the chimney. But here, next to the velvet, that sound feels like it belongs to someone else. You are protected by layers of history and craft. You think about the weavers who made this velvet. They worked in small shops, moving their wooden looms back and forth for months to make enough cloth for one bed. They had to be very careful, because one mistake could ruin the whole piece. Their hard work is what makes this room so quiet and warm tonight. You notice that the curtains go all the way from the wooden roof of the bed down to the floor. They don't just stop at the edge of the mattress. This is another clever trick. By reaching the floor, the curtains make sure that no cold air can get under the bed. It creates a solid box of still air. Inside that box, the temperature stays the same all night long. Even if the fire goes out and the rest of the room turns freezing cold, the space inside the velvet curtains will stay cozy and warm from the Lord's own body heat. You pull the edge of the curtain just a little bit. You can see how the light from the fire hits the tiny hairs of the velvet. It creates a shimmering effect, with parts of the cloth looking bright red and other parts looking dark and deep. It is very beautiful. It looks like a sunset caught in a piece of fabric. You feel a sense of calm looking at it. The color red was chosen because it feels warm to the eye. In a world of white snow and grey stone, a big splash of red makes a person feel more comfortable. The bed curtains are like a shield. In the Middle Ages, people were often worried about the night air. They thought that breathing in the cold air while they slept could make them sick. The curtains were a way to filter the air and keep it still. Whether or not that was true, the curtains certainly kept them warmer. And when you are warm, you sleep better. You feel your own eyes getting a bit heavy just looking at the soft folds of the fabric. It looks like the most comfortable place in the world. You think about how the room within a room is like a set of nesting dolls. You have the castle walls, then the tapestries, then the bed frame, and finally, these velvet curtains. Each layer makes the world smaller and safer. By the time you get to the bed, the great frost is so far away that it doesn't matter anymore. The winter is just a story told by the wind. Inside the curtains, the only story is one of rest and peace. You let the curtain fall back into its place. The gold tassel swings gently for a second and then stops. The bed is waiting. The night shift worker has already checked the ropes and the rugs. The only thing left to do is to close the world out. You look at the dark space between the curtains and the pillows. It looks like a cave of soft shadows. You realize that this is what true luxury was in the past. It wasn't about fancy machines or bright lights. It was about having enough heavy cloth to keep the cold away. The fire gives a small pop, and a flash of orange light fills the room for a second. It makes the red velvet glow brightly. You see the fine dust motes dancing in the air near the bed. They move slowly, as if they are also getting ready for sleep. You feel a deep sense of connection to this place. Even though you are just the watchman, you can feel the comfort that this bed provides. It is a masterpiece of staying warm. You are ready now to see what happens inside those curtains. You want to see the sheets and the blankets. You want to see how the night shift makes the bed warm before the Lord even touches it. You move toward the little wooden steps, feeling the weight of the velvet near your shoulder. The watch continues, and the great frost stays outside, defeated by the thick red silk and the clever mind of the people who built this castle. You are safe, you are warm, and the velvet is waiting to hold the heat of the night. You reach out and take hold of the edge of the heavy velvet curtain. It feels even heavier than it looks, a solid wall of fabric that separates the room from the sleeping space. With a slow, steady pull, you move the curtain. The brass rings at the top slide along the wooden rod with a soft, rhythmic sure sound. This is the moment where you truly enter the room within a room. As the curtain moves aside, the light from the fireplace and the candles is cut off, creating a deep, soft shadow inside the bed. It feels like you are opening the door to a secret garden or a hidden cave. Looking inside, you see the true heart of the Lord's comfort. This is not just a mattress on a frame. It is a carefully built nest. The space inside the curtains is surprisingly large, yet it feels snug. The air in here is different. It is still and quiet, because the curtains have been partially closed all evening. The small space has been catching the heat from the room and holding it. It feels a few degrees warmer than the rest of the chamber. This is a simple historical fact. In a time of great freezes, people spent as much time as possible inside their bed curtains, sometimes even eating their morning meals there to avoid the morning chill of the stone walls. You look down at the pillows. There are many of them piled high against the carved wooden headboard. This is your micro-history detail for this section. The pillows are not filled with foam or cotton, but with the softest down feathers from the bellies of geese. It took thousands of feathers to fill just one pillow. To make them even more comfortable, the night shift servants would place small sachets of dried flowers, like hops or chamomile, inside the pillowcases. These herbs have a very gentle, earthy smell that helps the brain relax. As you lean closer, you can catch that faint, sweet scent. It smells like a summer meadow, which is a wonderful thing to think about when the world outside is buried in snow. The mattress itself is a wonder. It is not one single piece, but a stack of layers. At the bottom, resting on the tight ropes you learned about earlier, is a thick sack filled with dried straw or pisha. This provides a firm base and keeps the cold from rising up through the bottom of the bed. On top of that is the feather bed, a massive, soft cushion filled with more goose down. It is so deep that when you sit on it, you sink in halfway to your knees. It wraps around your body like a warm hug, making sure no part of you is touching the cold surface. Take a moment to imagine the feeling of that softness. The room is silent now, save for the very distant howl of the great frost against the tower's outer skin. In here, tucked behind the velvet, you can't even see the walls of the castle. You only see the dark wood of the tester above you and the soft white of the linen sheets. The linen is cool to the touch at first, but it is very smooth. It has been washed with wood ash and lavender, making it feel crisp and clean. In the Middle Ages, having clean linen was a sign of being very important. While the servants might sleep in their woolen tunics on the floor, the Lord changes into a fresh nightshirt and slides between these smooth white sheets. You notice the way the light from the fire still manages to find small gaps in the curtains. It creates tiny needles of orange light that pierce the darkness. These little sparks of light show you the dust motes floating in the air, moving in slow, lazy circles. It is very hypnotic to watch. Everything in the space is designed to slow your heart down and make your breathing deep. You feel the weight of the day falling away from your shoulders. The night watchman is often a lonely job, but in this moment you feel a sense of peace. You are the guardian of this quiet, warm place. The blankets on the bed are made of the finest wool. They are not thin, they are thick and felted, which means the wool has been beaten until it is solid and windproof. They are heavy, and that weight is part of the comfort. Modern science tells us the heavy blankets help people feel safe, but the people of the Middle Ages knew this just by feeling it. The weight of the wool on your legs feels like a shield. It holds you down and keeps the world from spinning. You look at the top blanket, which is a coverlet made of silk and embroidered with gold thread. It shows a pattern of lions and roses, the symbols of the Lord's family. Even in sleep, he is surrounded by his history and his strength. You think about the night shift servant who made this bed. They had to fluff the feather mattress, a job that involves beating the bed with a wooden stick to get the air back into the feathers. They had to pull the linen sheets perfectly straight and tuck the heavy wool blankets in so tight that no draft could find a way through the bottom. It is a work of art, made every single day and taken apart every single morning. This person is the invisible ghost of the room, the one who ensures that the Lord never feels the bite of the great frost. The space inside the curtains is like a sanctuary. In the great hall, people are sleeping side by side, hearing each other breathe and move. But here, there is total privacy. It is the only place in the entire castle where a person can be truly alone with their thoughts. You look up at the wooden tester. In the dim light, the carvings of the stars and the moon seem to watch over the bed. It is a very comforting sight. It reminds you that the night is not just a time of cold and dark, but a time of magic and rest. As you stand there half wrapped in the velvet curtain, you realize that the room within a room is the ultimate human invention. We cannot change the weather, and we cannot always stop the wind from blowing through the stone, but we can build smaller and smaller spaces until we find one that we can keep warm. The bed is the smallest and warmest of all. It is the victory of the human spirit over the ice. The great frost can freeze the sea, but it cannot get past these velvet curtains and these woolen blankets. You feel a deep sense of gratitude for the warmth. Your hands are no longer numb, your face no longer stings from the wind. You are part of the quiet, orange glow of the tower. You think about the guards on the walls, their iron helmets turning white with frost. You wish you could bring them a piece of this warmth, but for now, your job is to watch over this specific fire and this specific bed. You are the watchman of the night shift, and the night is at its deepest point. You reach out and touch the silk coverlet. It feels cool and slippery, a contrast to the fuzzy velvet and the rough wool. Every texture in this room tells a different story. The silk tells of trade and far-off lands. The wool tells of the sheep on the hills. The linen tells of the blue-flowered flax fields. And the feathers tell of the birds that fly high above the castle. All of these things have come together in this one spot to create a place of rest. You prepare to move even deeper into the details of the bed. You want to see the copper pans and the hidden heat that makes the sheets feel like a warm summer day, even before the Lord climbs in. You move your hand away from the curtain, letting it settle back into its heavy red folds. The bed is open now, a welcoming white and gold space in the middle of the dark. The watch continues, and the great frost remains a distant, powerless memory. You are safe, you are warm, and the heart of the castle is beating slowly and steadily. As you stand by the side of the great bed, you notice a movement in the shadows near the fireplace. A young man, a page of the night shift, walks quietly across the rugs. He is carrying something that looks like a large, flat frying pan made of bright copper. It has a very long wooden handle, nearly as long as a walking stick. This is your micro-history detail for this section. The object is called a warming pan. It is a very clever tool used to make the bed feel like a warm hug before the Lord even touches the sheets. In a world where the air is freezing, climbing into a cold bed can be a shock to the body. The warming pan fixes that. The page stops by the hearth and uses a small set of iron tongs to pick up a few glowing red coals from the edge of the fire. He is very careful not to take the black soot or the grey ash, only the clean, hot embers. He flips open the lid of the copper pan. You see that the lid has many small holes punched into it in the shape of a flower. These holes are not just to make it look pretty. They allow the heat to escape and let the fire inside the pan breathe. He drops the coals into the pan and snaps the lid shut. You hear a soft clink as the metal latch catches. This is a simple historical fact. Copper was the best metal for this job because it heats up very quickly and holds onto that heat for a long time. It also glows beautifully in the candlelight, looking like a small trapped sun at the end of a stick. The page holds the wooden handle firmly. The wood stays cool, so he doesn't burn his hands, while the copper bowl of the pan begins to turn from cold metal to a radiating heater. You can see the faint shimmer of heat rising from the holes in the lid. The page walks over to the bed. He pulls back the heavy wool blankets and the top silk coverlet, revealing the crisp white linen sheets. He slides the hot copper pan right between the sheets. He does not leave it in one place, as that might scorch the delicate fabric. Instead, he moves it back and forth in long, slow strokes. It looks a bit like he is ironing the bed. You can hear the soft shh sound of the smooth metals sliding over the linen. It is a very peaceful, domestic sound that fits perfectly with the quiet of the night. Take a moment to listen to that sliding sound. The room is so still that the sound of the pan seems to fill the space. As the page moves the warming pan, the scent of the linen changes. The heat wakes up the smell of the lavender and wood ash used to wash the sheets. A gentle cloud of sweet floral steam rises from the bed. It makes the air inside the velvet curtains smell like a summer laundry day. You can see the steam dancing in the orange light of the fire, turning into tiny ghosts before disappearing into the dark wood of the tester above. The night shift worker is very focused on his task. He starts at the top of the bed, where the Lord's shoulders will rest, and works his way down to the very bottom. He spends extra time at the foot of the bed. He knows that in the great frost, a person's feet are often the coldest part of their body. If the feet are warm, the rest of the body can finally relax and fall into a deep sleep. He moves the pan in circles, making sure every inch of the lower bed is toasted and dry. Stone castles are often damp, but the warming pan chases all that moisture away. You watch the copper pan catch the light. It reflects the red of the bed curtains and the gold of the fire. It is a beautiful object, but it is also a very humble one. It shows how much effort goes into making one person comfortable. In the village below the castle, people might fill a clay jug with hot water, or even wrap a hot stone from the fire in a piece of old cloth to put at their feet. But here, the warming pan is a specialized tool, built just for this one job. It is part of the machinery of the castle's comfort. The page finishes his work. He slides the pan out from the blankets and closes them up quickly to trap the heat inside. The bed now looks exactly as it did before, but you know that underneath those blankets, the sheets are glowing with warmth. It is a hidden heat, a secret gift left by the night shift. The page bows his head slightly, even though the Lord is not yet in the room. He takes the pan back to the fireplace, where he will empty the dying coals into a safe iron bucket. You think about the warmth now trapped in the bed. It is a gentle, steady heat. It isn't like the roaring fire that can sometimes be too hot or make your skin feel tight. This is a soft, soaking heat that goes deep into the muscles. You can imagine the Lord climbing into the bed and feeling that immediate relief as the warmth of the sheets meets his skin. It would feel like the great frost had been pushed 1,000 miles away. It is the ultimate victory of the room within a room concept. The warming pan is also a safety tool. By taking the moisture out of the bed, it helps keep the Lord healthy. In the Middle Ages, people believed that dampness was the friend of sickness. A dry bed was a safe bed. You realize that every person you have seen tonight, from the man carrying the logs to the boy with the copper pan, is a guardian of the Lord's health. They work in the shadows of the night so that the sun can find the Lord strong and rested in the morning. You look at the bed one more time. It seems to have a life of its own now. The blankets look heavy and full, as if they are hugging the warmth the page just put there. The orange light of the fire is getting a bit softer as the logs burn down, but the bed doesn't care. It has its own supply of heat now. It is a self-contained world of comfort. The night watchman sees all these little details, the things that the Lord might take for granted. You see the care, the time, and the cleverness of the copper and the coal. The page leaves the room quietly, his soft leather shoes making no sound on the rugs. The door clicks shut, and you are alone again with the fire and the bed. The silence is deeper now. The great frost is still out there, turning the world to white iron. But in here, the night shift has done its work. The bed is ready. The air is sweet. The fire is steady. You feel a sense of completion. The watch continues, but the hardest part of the night is over. You are the witness to a perfectly prepared sanctuary. You take a slow breath. Your own body feels heavier, as if the warmth of the room is pulling at you too. You find yourself leaning slightly against the bedpost, feeling the solid oak support your weight. The copper pan has left a legacy of heat that you can almost feel just by standing near the curtains. You are ready to see the final steps, the small moments that lead to the ultimate rest. The watch continues, and the castle sleeps on, protected by stone, wool, and the warm heart of a copper pan. You move your hand over the surface of the bed, not touching the blankets, but just feeling the air above them. You can feel the heat radiating through the heavy wool. It is a strange and wonderful thing. Just a few minutes ago, this bed was as cool as the rest of the room, but the copper pan has changed everything. Now the heat is spreading out, moving from the center of the mattress toward the edges. It is a slow, soaking warmth. This is a simple historical fact. Because stone walls were so good at holding onto the cold, a bed that wasn't warmed like this could feel like sleeping on a block of ice. The heat from the coals doesn't just warm the fabric, it dries out any dampness that might be hiding in the feathers of the mattress. This heat has a weight to it. It feels thick and golden, much like the honey-colored light from the candles. You look at the way the blankets sit on the bed. They look heavier now, almost as if they are pressing down into the soft feather bed beneath them. This is your microhistory detail for this part of the night. The heat inside the bed actually helps the goose feathers to expand. When feathers get warm and dry, they puff up with air. This makes the mattress even softer and deeper than it was before. It is like the bed is growing, becoming a larger and more welcoming nest as the night goes on. You think about the science of this warmth, though you don't call it science. You just know that the room within a room is working. The heat from the copper pan is trapped by the linen, then by the wool, then by the silk, and finally by the velvet curtains. Each layer of cloth is a guard. They stand in a circle around the heat, refusing to let it escape into the cold air of the tower. It is a very clever way to live. Instead of trying to heat the whole giant castle, which would be impossible, the people of the Middle Ages focused all their energy on making this one small space perfect. Take a moment to just stand in the glow of the bed. The fire in the hearth gives a low, soft whistle as a pocket of air escapes from a log. Other than that, the silence is absolute. You are standing in the quietest place in the world. You look at the shadows on the underside of the wooden tester. They are not moving now because the page has left and the air has settled. The shadows are deep and still, like dark water in a well. You feel your own breath slowing down to match the rhythm of the room. Every time you breathe out, you see a tiny, faint mist, but it is much smaller than it was on the stairs. The room is winning its fight against the great frost. The warmth of the bed is also waking up the smell of the wool. It is a very clean, natural smell. It reminds you of the sheep that live on the hills around the castle. Those sheep have thick, oily coats that keep them warm even when they are standing in the snow. Now, their wool is doing the same job for the Lord. You feel a sense of connection to the land outside. The castle is made of the local stone, the bed is made of the local oak, and the blankets are made from the local sheep. The room within a room is a piece of the world outside, brought inside and made comfortable by human hands. You notice a small dark spot on the edge of the linen sheet where the warming pan rested for a second. It isn't a burn, just a sign of the intense heat that was there. It reminds you that fire is a dangerous friend. It must be watched and handled with care. The night shift workers are experts at this. They know exactly how hot the coals should be and exactly how fast to move the pan. They have a feeling for the materials they work with. They know the limit of the linen and the strength of the wool. As you stand there, the heat seems to reach out and pull at you. It is very tempting to just close your eyes and lean against the soft velvet. You imagine what it would be like to slide into that space between the warm sheets. Your skin would tingle as it met the heat. Your muscles, which have been tight from the cold, would finally let go. You would feel a sense of safety that is hard to find anywhere else. The bed is not just a place for the body to rest. It is a place for the mind to find peace. You think about the great frost again. They say that out on the moors the wind is so strong it can knock a man off his horse. They say the ice on the ponds is as thick as a stone wall. But in here, that world doesn't exist. The only reality is the orange light, the smell of lavender, and the soaking heat of the bed. You are the guardian of this reality. You are the one who makes sure the silence stays unbroken and the warmth stays trapped. You look at the pillow again. The heat from the bed has reached up to the goose down inside it. The pillow looks even more plump and inviting than it did before. You can imagine the Lord's head sinking into that softness, surrounded by the scent of hops and chamomile. It is a perfect design for sleep. Every sense is being looked after: the touch of the silk, the smell of the herbs, the sight of the warm light, and the sound of the quiet fire. The night shift is a noble job in its own way. It is the job of providing comfort in a hard world. You feel a sense of pride in your watch. You are seeing the best of what people can do when they work together to fight the winter. You are seeing the beauty of the room within a room. It is a small victory, but on a night like this, it feels like the most important thing in the whole kingdom. You move your hand back to your side. The heat of the bed continues to grow and spread. It is a steady, reliable force. You know that the bed will stay warm for a long time, held in by the heavy curtains and the thick blankets. The watch continues, and the tower stands tall in the frozen night. You are ready to move on, to see the final layers of blankets being added, making the nest complete. The great frost is still out there, but in here, the heart of the castle is warm, dry, and very, very still. You watch as the page returns to the bed, his arms full of even more blankets. It seems impossible that the bed could need more, but in the heart of the great frost, you can never have too many layers. These blankets are different from the ones already on the bed. They are made of a very thick, heavy wool that has been fulled. This is your microhistory detail for this section. Fulling is a way of treating wool where it is soaked in water and beaten with heavy wooden hammers. This makes the fibers of the wool lock together tightly, turning the cloth into something that feels almost like a soft, flexible board. It is so thick that no wind could ever blow through it. This is a simple historical fact. The layers of a medieval bed were arranged like a puzzle. Each layer had a specific job. The linen sheet was for the feel against the skin. The first wall blanket was for holding the heat from the warming pan. But these top blankets, the heavy ones, are there to act as a lid. They press down on the layers below, squeezing the warm air into the mattress and making sure it stays there all night. The weight of all these covers together is quite surprising. If you were to try and lift them all at once, you would feel like you were lifting a heavy coat made of lead. The page spreads the first heavy blanket across the bed. He is very careful to make sure it hangs down equally on both sides. He tucks the edges deep under the mattress, pulling them tight. You can hear the soft creak of the bed ropes as they take on the extra weight. This tucking is very important. It seals the sides of the bed, creating a tight envelope of warmth. It means that even if the Lord moves in his sleep, he won't pull the blankets up and let a cold spot in. The bed is becoming a solid, warm block of comfort. Take a moment to listen to the sound of the wool moving. It is a very soft, muffled sound, like the sound of snow falling on a roof. Because the wool is so thick, it doesn't make a sharp noise. The room feels even quieter now that more fabric has been added. The wool soaks up the tiny sounds of the fire and the distant wind. You feel like the room is being padded with silence. You look at the page's hands as he smooths out a wrinkle in the blanket. His movements are slow and practiced. He has done this every night of the winter, and he knows that a flat, smooth bed is a warm bed. Next comes a coverlet made of dark green wool, decorated with small embroidered birds. The green is so dark, it looks like the needles of a pine tree. This blanket is the final layer before the silk top cover. It adds one last bit of protection. You think about the sheep that gave this wool. They lived on the cold, rainy hills, and their wool kept them dry and warm through many storms. Now that same strength is being used to protect the Lord. There is something very natural and right about using the gifts of the earth to fight the cold of the winter. You look at the way the blankets are stacked. You can see the different colors at the edge, the white of the linen, the brown of the first wool, and the dark green of the top. It looks like the layers of the earth. Underneath all that weight, the heat from the copper pan is trapped and happy. It has nowhere to go. It will stay there, soaking into the feathers and the linen, waiting for the Lord to arrive. You feel a sense of satisfaction. The night shift has built a fortress of fabric. The page stands back for a second to look at his work. He seems happy with it. The bed looks tall and proud in the middle of the room. It is no longer just a piece of furniture. It is a machine for sleeping. Every part of it. The wooden posts, the velvet curtains, the warming pan, and these heavy blankets is working together. They are a team of objects, all focused on the goal of defeating the great frost. You realize that even though the Lord is powerful, he is still dependent on these simple things and the people who prepare them. You think about the night shift again. In a few hours, when the fire is just a pile of grey ash and the moon is high in the sky, this bed will still be warm. The work being done now is like planting a seed that will bloom in the middle of the night. The page is not just making a bed, he is making a promise of safety. He is making sure that no matter how hard the frost bites at the castle walls, it will never touch the person sleeping here. It is a quiet, humble kind of care. You feel the air in the room. It is getting a bit cooler now that the page is finished and the fire has settled. But when you look at the bed, you don't feel cold. You feel the heat that is hidden inside. It is like looking at a warm loaf of bread just out of the oven. You know the warmth is there, even if you can't see it. You find yourself taking a deep, relaxed breath. Your watch is going well. The room is ready. The room within a room is complete. The page picks up his empty basket and moves toward the door. He walks around the large rug, his footsteps silent. You see him stop for a moment to look at the fire. He adds one small log to the coals, just enough to keep the glow going for a little longer. Then he is gone. The door clicks shut with a final solid sound. You are alone again with the bed and the shadows. The orange light is flickering gently, casting long, slow shadows of the bedposts across the ceiling. You look at the heavy blankets one last time. They look so solid and safe. You imagine the weight of them pressing down on you, making you feel grounded and secure. It is a very comforting thought. In a world that can be dangerous and cold, having a place that is this warm and this heavy is a great blessing. The watch continues, and the great frost stays where it belongs on the other side of the stone. You are the guardian of the blankets, the witness to the warmth, and the night is moving slowly toward the dawn. You take a small step closer to the bed and reach out a finger to touch the top layer. This is the linen sheet that has been folded back over the heavy wool blankets. It feels very smooth and slightly stiff. This is your microhistory detail for this section. The linen was often treated with a little bit of starch made from crushed grain. This starch made the fabric crisp and helped it stay clean longer. When you touch it, you can feel that crispness. It is also very white, which is a sign of how well the night shift laundry workers did their job. They used the sun and special soaps to keep the linen as bright as a cloud. This is a simple historical fact. Linen was used for the sheets because it is very good at moving moisture away from the skin. Even in the middle of a great frost, a person might get a little bit warm under all those heavy blankets. Linen helps to keep the skin dry and comfortable. If the sheets were made of wool, they might feel too itchy or make the person feel too hot. The mix of soft linen against the skin and heavy wool on top is the perfect recipe for a good night's sleep. It shows how much the people of the past knew about how to be comfortable, even without modern machines. You feel the heat coming up from the mattress. The warming pan did its job well. The linen is no longer cold, it is warm to the touch. It feels like a piece of paper that has been sitting in the sun. You look at the way the sheet is tucked in. It is very neat and straight. You can see the tiny stitches along the edge where a person used a needle and thread to finish the hem. Everything in this room has been touched by human hands. Everything has been made with care. Take a moment to just look at the white of the sheets. In the orange light of the fire, the white linen looks almost like it is glowing. It stands out against the dark red of the velvet curtains and the deep brown of the wooden bed. It looks like a clean, safe space where nothing bad can happen. You feel a sense of calm looking at it. The contrast between the dark, cold world outside and this bright, warm bed is very strong. It makes you feel lucky to be here, inside the room within a room, watching over this piece. You notice a small smell of lavender coming from the sheets. Earlier, you smelled it in the air, but here, close to the fabric, it is much stronger. Lavender was often used to wash the bedding because people believed it could bring good dreams. It is a very clean and gentle smell. It makes you think of a summer garden full of purple flowers and buzzing bees. It is a nice thought to have when the wind is howling around the stone tower. The lavender is like a little piece of summer that has been saved and hidden inside the bed. You think about the night shift again. There are people in the castle who spend their whole lives looking after the linen. They wash it, they dry it, they mend any small holes, and they fold it neatly in big wooden chests. Their work is what makes the bed feel so fresh and new every single night. You are just seeing the final result of all that hard work. You feel a sense of respect for the people who do the jobs that no one sees. They are the ones who make the castle a home. The heat from the bed is very steady. It doesn't flicker like the fire. It just stays there, solid and kind. You imagine the Lord sliding into this space. He would feel the smoothness of the linen and the immediate warmth of the sheets. It would be a very happy moment. All the stress of the day, the meetings, the decisions, and the cold of the castle would simply melt away. The bed is a place where a person can stop being a lord and just be a human who needs to rest. You look at the pillow again. It is also covered in the same white linen. It looks so soft and inviting. You think about the goose feathers inside it, all warmed up and fluffy. The pillow is like a small cloud waiting for a head to rest on it. You can almost feel the softness yourself, even though you are standing up. Your own neck feels a little bit tired from the long watch, and the thought of a pillow is very nice. But you stay where you are, keeping your eyes on the room. The fire gives a small crackle, and the light in the room shifts. The shadows of the bedposts move across the white sheets like long, dark fingers. It is a very pretty sight. The room is full of these small, quiet movements. You feel like you are part of a very slow dance. The fire, the shadows, the light, and the warmth are all moving together in a rhythm that only happens at night. It is a very peaceful dance, and it makes you feel safe. You think about the great frost one more time. You imagine the ice growing on the outside of the windows, making patterns that look like frozen ferns. The frost is trying to get in, but it can't get past the stone, the tapestries, the curtains, or the blankets. The linen sheets are the final wall. They are the innermost part of the fortress. Behind them, the Lord is safe. The winter can do nothing to him here. You feel a sense of completion. The bed is ready. The sheets are warm. The room is quiet. You have seen how the room within a room is built, from the big stone walls down to the tiny stitches on the linen hem. It is a wonderful thing to see. You feel like you have learned a secret about how people survive the hardest times. They do it by being clever, by working together, and by taking care of the small things. You take a deep breath and let it out slowly. Your watch is almost over. The night is at its deepest point, and the world is waiting for the sun. But for now, the warmth is the king of the room. The night shift has done its work, and the castle is sleeping. You stay in your spot, a quiet guardian in the orange glow, watching the heat stay trapped inside the white linen. The watch continues, and the bed stands ready, a bright and warm heart in the middle of the dark tower. You look down at the bed again. The page has finished his work, but you want to see the details of these many covers. There are so many layers that the bed looks like a giant, soft cake. Each layer has been put there for a reason. You can see the edges of the different cloths peeking out from under each other. First, there is the white linen. Then, there is a light blanket of thin wool. Above that is the first heavy blanket, and then another. It is a massive pile of warmth. This is a simple historical fact. In the Middle Ages, wool was the most valuable thing a country could have. It was more important than gold because it was the only thing that could keep people alive during the Great Frost. You reach out and touch the edge of the third blanket. It feels very different from the smooth linen. It is thick and a bit hairy. This is your microhistory detail for this part of the night. This blanket has been napped. To do this, a worker used a dried plant called a teasel. The teasel has tiny, stiff hooks on it. The worker would brush the wool with the teasel to pull up the tiny fibers. This makes the blanket very fuzzy and soft. This fuzz traps even more air, which makes the blanket much warmer. You can see the tiny hairs of the wool catching the orange light from the fireplace. It looks like the blanket is covered in a soft golden mist. You think about how heavy all these layers are. If you were to lie under them, you would feel a strong pressure on your legs and chest. It is a very good kind of pressure. It feels like a giant warm hand is holding you down so you can rest. In this time, people did not like thin, light blankets. They wanted to feel the weight of the wool. They knew that weight meant safety. It meant the cold wind could not lift the covers and find its way to your skin. The weight of the blankets is like a heavy anchor, keeping you steady in the middle of the night. Take a moment to just think about that weight. The room is very quiet. You can almost hear the weight of the wool pressing down on the mattress. It is a heavy, silent sound. You feel the peace of the room within a room getting deeper and deeper. The Great Frost is trying to freeze the world, but it cannot move these blankets. They are too heavy and too thick. You look at the way the blankets are tucked into the sides of the bed. They are pulled so tight that the mattress looks like it is being squeezed in a hug. This is how you stop the drafts. You close every gap and seal every hole. The wool smells like the earth and the rain. It is a very old smell. It reminds you that humans have been using wool to stay warm for thousands of years. Each thread in these blankets was spun by hand. A person sat at a spinning wheel for days and days to make enough thread for just one cover. Then a weaver sat at a loom, moving the wooden shuttle back and forth to make the cloth. It was a very slow job. When you look at the blankets, you are looking at thousands of hours of human work. You are looking at the care and the time it takes to fight the winter. You notice the top blanket has a special pattern. It is not just a solid color. It has little shapes of leaves and stars woven into the edge. The thread for these shapes is made of silk, so it shines when the firelight hits it. It is a small bit of beauty on a very practical object. Even though the blankets are there to keep the Lord warm, they are also there to show how important he is. Only a very rich person could have so many layers of fine wool and silk. In the village, a family might share one single blanket, but here the bed is a mountain of wool. The heat from the warming pan is still there, trapped deep under all these layers. Because the blankets are so thick, the heat cannot get out. It is being held prisoner by the wool. This is the secret of the medieval night. You do not try to heat the air. You try to heat the bed. Once the bed is warm, the blankets will keep it that way until the sun comes up. It is like a thermos for a person. You are the watchman of this heat. You are the one who sees how the layers work together to protect the life inside the bed. You think about the night shift workers who made these blankets. They had to wash the wool in big wooden tubs, then dry it, then comb it, then spin it. It was a lot of hard work, and every day a servant has to lift these heavy covers to make the bed. It takes a strong person to handle this much wool. They are the invisible muscles of the castle. They do the heavy lifting so the Lord can have a soft, light sleep. You feel a sense of gratitude for their strength. Without them, the great frost would win every single night. The light from the fire is getting a bit darker now. The red coals are glowing more than the yellow flames. This makes the colors of the blankets look different. The dark green looks almost black, and the brown looks like deep chocolate. The shadows between the folds of the wool are very dark and mysterious. You feel like you are looking at a landscape of mountains and valleys. It is a very beautiful thing to see. It makes you feel very calm and sleepy. The world is moving toward the middle of the night, the time when the frost is at its strongest. But the blankets are ready. They are thick, they are heavy, and they are warm. They are the final layer of the room within a room. You feel a sense of peace knowing that the bed is so well protected. You have seen the stone, the tapestry, the wood, the velvet, the linen, and now the wool. Each one is a shield. Each one is a friend. You are the witness to the best that humans can do to stay safe. The watch continues, and the wool stands guard. You feel your own breath getting slower and deeper as you watch the firelight dance on the fuzzy napped wool. You move your hand away from the blankets. You have seen enough to know that the Lord will be very warm tonight. The great frost can howl and scream all it wants, but it will never get through this mountain of wool. You turn your head to look at the other parts of the room, but your mind stays with the blankets. You can still feel the weight of them in your imagination. It is a very good feeling. It is the feeling of being looked after. You are the watchman, and the night is quiet and heavy. You move to the side of the bed and look at the thick stack of mattresses. They are held high above the floor by the wooden frame and the tight ropes. This is not like a modern bed with one single piece of foam. This is a mountain of soft things. The most important part is the very top mattress. It is a giant sack made of strong linen, and it is stuffed full of something very special. This is your micro-history detail for tonight. The mattress is filled with the feathers of thousands of geese. These are not the hard feathers from the wings, but the tiny, soft down feathers from the chest. They are the fluffiest things in the world. This is a simple historical fact. A feather bed was a treasure. In the Middle Ages, most people slept on bags filled with straw or dried grass. Straw is crunchy and can have bugs in it, and it gets flat and cold very quickly. But a feather bed stays soft. It traps the air inside the feathers, and that air gets warm from the heat of the body. When you sit on a feather bed, you don't stay on top of it. You sink down deep into the middle. It wraps around your sides like a giant, warm cloud. It is the best way to stay warm during the great frost, because the feathers stop the cold from the floor from ever reaching your back. You reach out and press your hand into the top of the mattress. It is so soft that your hand disappears almost to the wrist. It feels like pushing into a bowl of whipped cream. When you pull your hand away, the mattress stays in that shape for a second before slowly puffing back up. This puffing up is the air returning to the feathers. This is why the night shift servant has to beat the bed every day. They use a wooden stick to hit the mattress and stir up the feathers so they stay full of air. A flat feather bed is a cold feather bed, but a fluffy one is a palace of warmth. Take a moment to imagine how deep that softness feels. The room is very quiet now, and you can almost hear the soft shush of the feathers moving inside the linen sack. It is a very gentle sound, like the wind in the trees, but much closer and kinder. You look at the way the mattress is piled high. It is so thick that the Lord needs those little wooden steps just to get into it. Being high up like that is another trick to stay warm. The cold air stays low on the floor while the warm air from the fireplace rises. By sleeping on top of this mountain of feathers, the Lord is staying in the warmest part of the room. The mattress smells like the clean linen it is wrapped in, but also a little bit like the sun. Feathers were often laid out in the summer sun to dry and stay fresh before they were put into the bed. The smell stays with them all through the winter. It is a very comforting scent. It makes you think of the birds flying high in the blue sky, far away from the grey stone and the ice of the great frost. It is a small piece of nature that has been brought inside to help a human rest. You think about the night shift workers who have to look after this bed. It is heavy work to move a mattress this big. It takes 2 or 3 people to flip it over or to carry it to the window to air it out. They are the ones who make sure no single feather is wasted. They mend every tiny hole in the linen because if the feathers leak out, the warmth goes with them. They are the guardians of the Lord's softness. Without their strong arms and careful hands, the bed would eventually become thin and hard. The light from the fire is low, and it makes the mattress look like a landscape of soft hills and dark valleys. The white linen cover catches the orange glow and turns it into a soft peach color. It looks like the most inviting place in the world. You feel the weight of your own body as you stand there, and your legs feel a little bit jealous of the feathers. Your watch has been long, and you've seen so much cold tonight. But seeing this soft nest makes you feel better. It shows that even in the hardest winter, people can find a way to be gentle and kind to themselves. You notice that there is a second, thinner mattress underneath the feather one. This one is filled with wool. It is there to provide a bit of support so the Lord doesn't sink all the way through to the ropes. It is another layer of protection. The wool mattress stops the drafts, and the feather mattress holds the heat. They are a team. Everything in the room within a room works in pairs or groups. The fire and the stone, the velvet and the wood, the linen and the wool. They all have a partner in the fight against the cold. You take a deep breath of the quiet air. You feel very peaceful. The great frost is still out there, turning the world into a white desert. You can hear a bit of snow hitting the window, a soft tap-tap like a ghost wanting to come in. But it cannot. The feathers are too thick. The room within a room is too strong. You are the watchman, and you are seeing a perfect victory over the winter. The bed is ready, the feathers are fluffed, and the heat is trapped. You look at the pillow again, which is just a smaller version of the big feather bed. It is also stuffed with the same soft down. You imagine the Lord laying his head down and feeling all that fluff rise up around his ears. It would block out the sound of the wind and the crackle of the fire. It would leave him in a world of total silence and warmth. It is a wonderful gift. You feel a sense of pride that you are the one watching over this gift tonight. Your shift is moving along, and the room is at its most beautiful. You move your hand away from the mattress and stand tall again. You have a few more things to see before your watch is ended. You want to see the clothes the Lord wears to sleep and how he finally closes the curtains to seal himself in. But for now, you just enjoy the sight of the big, soft bed. It is a masterpiece of the night shift. It is a monument to the idea that everyone deserves a warm place to hide from the dark. The watch continues, and the feathers stay soft and still in the orange light. You move your eyes from the soft mountain of feathers to a small wooden chair sitting near the edge of the rug. Draped over the back of the chair is a long, heavy garment made of the finest white linen. This is the Lord's nightshirt. In the Middle Ages, people did not sleep in the clothes they wore during the day. They changed into something fresh and clean. This is a simple historical fact. A nightshirt was much more than just a piece of clothing. It was another layer of warmth. It was cut very long, reaching all the way down to the ankles, with long sleeves that could be pulled over the hands. It was like a soft, wearable blanket that stayed with the person even if they moved outside the covers. This nightshirt is special because it is lined with something very soft and very warm. This is your microhistory detail for this part of the night. The neck and the cuffs of the sleeves are lined with the fur of a squirrel. In the winter, squirrels grow a thick grey coat that is incredibly soft to the touch. By sewing this fur inside the nightshirt, the night shift tailors made sure that the Lord's skin would only ever touch something warm and fuzzy. It keeps the drafts from crawling down the neck or up the sleeves. It is a tiny bit of luxury that makes a huge difference when the air in the room is cold enough to see your own breath. You reach out and touch the linen of the nightshirt. It feels heavy and cool, but you know that as soon as it touches a warm body, it will hold that heat close. You can see the tiny, neat stitches where the fur has been joined to the cloth. Each stitch was made by a person who knew that a single loose thread could let in a tiny bit of cold. You think about the night shift servant whose job it was to warm this shirt. They would hold it near the fire for a few minutes, turning it over and over so the linen and the fur became toasty and dry. Putting on a warm shirt is the first step in the ritual of going to sleep in the great frost. Take a moment to imagine the feeling of that soft fur against your skin. The room's very still now, and the only light comes from the deep red glow of the fire. The white linen of the nightshirt catches that glow, making the garment look like it is made of soft pink silk. You feel the silence of the tower pressing in, but the sight of the warm clothes makes you feel safe. You look at the way the sleeves are gathered at the wrists with small silk ribbons. These ribbons are used to tie the sleeves tight, making sure they don't slide up during the night. It is all about sealing out the cold. Every gap is closed, every opening is guarded. Next to the nightshirt on the chair, you see a pair of thick woolen hose, which are like very long, heavy socks. They are made of a dark blue wool that has been knitted very tightly. These go on over the feet and all the way up the legs. Even with the warming pan and the heavy blankets, the night shift knows that the feet need extra help. You think about the woman who knitted these socks. She probably sat by a fire just like this one, her needles clicking together in a fast, steady rhythm. Her work is now the final shield for the Lord's toes. The nightshirt smells faintly of wood smoke and the sweet, clean scent of the linen. It is a very honest smell. It tells you that the person who wears this is well cared for. You think about the night shift again. In the morning, a servant will take this nightshirt away to be washed and dried. They will brush the squirrel fur to keep it soft and fluffy. They are the ones who make sure the Lord feels like a king, even when he is just a man trying to stay warm. You feel a sense of respect for the cycle of work that happens every day and every night. You notice a small cap sitting on the seat of the chair. It is made of the same white linen and lined with the same soft squirrel fur. This is a nightcap. In the Middle Ages, people believed that most of the body's heat escaped through the top of the head. To stop this, they wore a cap that tied under the chin. It covers the ears and the forehead, leaving only the face open to the air. With the nightshirt, the hose, and the cap, the Lord is almost completely covered in a shell of linen and fur. Before he even gets into the bed, he is his own room within a room. The light from the fire flickers one last time before a log settles deep into the ash. The room becomes a bit darker, and the white nightshirt stands out like a ghost in the shadows. It looks like a symbol of peace. You feel your own shoulders relax as you look at it. The struggle of the day is over. The cold of the castle is being pushed back. The nightshirt is the uniform of rest. It tells the body that it is time to stop working and start dreaming. You think about the great frost outside the thick stone walls. Out there, the wind is sharp and the ice is hard. But in here, everything is soft. The feathers, the velvet, the wool, the linen, and the fur. Humans have taken the best things from the world around them, the trees, the sheep, the geese, and the squirrels, and turned them into a fortress of comfort. It is a very clever and beautiful thing to see. You feel proud to be the watchman of this comfort. You are the one who sees all the layers working together. You move your hand away from the chair. You have seen how the bed is prepared and how the person is prepared. Now there is only one thing left, to see how the room within a room is finally sealed for the night. You turn your eyes back to the big bed with its heavy red curtains. The stage is set. The warmth is trapped. The clothes are ready. The watch continues, and the night is moving toward its quietest hour. You feel a deep sense of calm, knowing that everything is in its right place. The great frost has no power here. You reach out and take hold of the heavy velvet curtain once again. This is the moment when the room within a room is finally locked tight. You pull the red fabric across the side of the bed. The brass rings make a slow, sleepy clink-clinking as they slide along the wooden rod. As the curtains meet in the middle, the last of the orange firelight is cut off. You are now standing just outside a perfect dark cube of warmth. This is a simple historical fact. By pulling these curtains shut, the Lord creates a space where the air stays completely still. Even if a window shutter were to blow open and let the great frost into the main room, the person inside the bed would not feel a thing. The velvet curtains are so thick and heavy that they overlap by several inches. This is your micro-history detail for this section. The edges of the curtains are weighted with small pieces of lead sewn into the hem. These weights ensure that the fabric hangs perfectly straight and heavy against the floor. It prevents the curtains from fluttering or blowing if a draft enters the room. It makes the bed feel as solid as a stone wall, but a wall made of soft, warm silk. You can feel the weight of the lead as you adjust the fabric, making sure there is not even a tiny crack for the cold to peek through. Now, imagine you are the one inside that space. As the curtains close, the world disappears. The big stone room, the high ceiling, and the glowing fireplace are all gone. You are in a small, cozy world that is exactly the size of the bed. The air is thick with the scent of lavender and warm wool. It is very dark, but it is a kind of darkness that feels safe. It is like being back in the cradle. You can feel the heat from the warming pan rising up through the feathers wrapping around you. The great frost is 1,000 miles away. Take a moment to listen to the silence inside the curtains. It is a very deep, heavy silence. The thick velvet soaks up every sound from the outside. You can no longer hear the pop of the fire or the hum of the wind in the chimney. The only thing you can hear is the sound of your own slow breathing. It is the quietest place in the entire castle. In this silence, the mind can finally let go of the day. There are no more guards to check on, no more letters to write, and no more worries about the winter. There is only the warmth and the dark. Inside this room within a room, the heat of the body becomes its own heater. Because the space is so small, the air warms up very quickly. The wooden tester above your head reflects that heat back down onto the blankets. It is a perfect circle of warmth. You think about the night shift workers who are still out in the cold. You think about the guards on the battlements whose breath is freezing on their beards. You feel a deep sense of gratitude for the people who built this nest. They have used their cleverness to create a place where a human can be completely safe from the ice. The bed feels like it is floating in the middle of the night. Without the light from the fire, you lose sense of where the walls of the room are. You are just a point of warmth in a vast cold universe, but you are not afraid. The room within a room is strong. It has stood through many winters, and it will stand through this one too. The oak posts are like the legs of a giant, holding you up and keeping you steady. You feel a sense of peace that is as deep as the feathers in the mattress. You notice that the air inside the curtain stays very dry. The heavy wool blankets and the linen sheets soak up any dampness. This is very important for staying warm. Damp air feels much colder than dry air. The night shift has done its work so well that the air feels as soft as silk against your face. You take a slow, deep breath, and it feels like drinking a warm, sweet drink. Your lungs feel relaxed and happy. You think about the layers again. The lead-weighted velvet, the heavy wool, the soft feathers, and the fur-lined nightshirt. It is like a suit of armor, but instead of protecting you from swords, it protects you from the frost. It is a masterpiece of design. It shows that even hundreds of years ago, people were very smart about how to take care of themselves. They didn't have electricity or heaters, but they had each other and they had the gifts of the earth. As the watchman, you stand by the closed curtains for a long time. You are the only person who knows how perfect the warmth is inside. You are the guardian of this secret world. The orange glow of the dying fire reflects off the outside of the velvet, making the red fabric look like it is pulsing with a slow, dark life. It looks like a heart beating in the middle of the tower. It is a very beautiful and comforting sight. The night is moving toward its coldest point, just before the dawn. This is the time when the great frost tries its hardest to break into the castle. You can hear the stone walls give a loud crack as the ice expands in the joints. It is a sharp, scary sound, but the curtains don't even move. They stay heavy and still, holding the peace. You feel a sense of pride. You and the night shift have won. The winter has been defeated by a few pieces of wood and some heavy cloth. You take a step back from the bed. Your work here is nearly done. You have seen every step of the preparation. You have seen the fire, the tapestries, the rugs, the warming pan, and the mountain of blankets. You have seen the room within a room being built and then sealed. You feel a deep sense of satisfaction. The world is a hard place, but tonight, in this one room, it is a kind place. You look around the chamber one last time. The shadows are long and still. The air is quiet. The warmth is trapped. You are the watchman, and your heart is light. The great frost can do what it wants to the world outside, but it cannot touch the heart of the tower. You are ready to watch the fire fade and the stars turn pale. The watch continues, and the sanctuary is complete. You stand in the shadows, a silent witness to the victory of warmth over the winter. You stand in the deepening shadows of the chamber, looking at a small table near the bed. On this table sits a single thick candle. It is not a tall, thin candle like the ones in the great hall, but a short, wide one made of pure yellow beeswax. This is your microhistory detail for this part of the night. The candle sits in a holder called a mortise. A mortise is a heavy iron cup that is built to catch every single drop of melting wax, so that nothing spills onto the fine rugs or the wooden floor. The flame of this candle is the only thing moving in the room now that the bed curtains are closed. It is a tiny, steady pulse of light in the vast dark of the tower. This is a simple historical fact. Beeswax was very expensive, so a candle like this was only used in the most important rooms. Beeswax is special because it burns very slowly and does not make the black, smelly smoke that cheaper candles do. It also has a natural, sweet smell, like a field of flowers in the sun. The night shift worker who placed this candle here made sure the wick was trimmed perfectly. A well-trimmed wick means the flame stays small and quiet, without flickering or jumping. It is a light that is meant for peace, not for work. You watch the flame. It is shaped like a tiny golden leaf. At the very bottom, near the black wick, the flame is a deep, cool blue. Then it turns into a bright, clear white, and finally into a soft, glowing orange at the very tip. The light it gives off is very gentle. It does not reach the corners of the room. It only makes a small circle of gold on the table and the side of the bed curtains. This tiny light is the last guardian of the room. It stands watch against the total darkness of the great frost. Take a moment to just watch that little flame dance. The room is so quiet that you feel like you could hear the flame if you listened hard enough. It makes a very faint, soft sound, like a tiny sigh. As the wax melts, it turns into a clear golden liquid that pools at the top of the candle. This liquid wax is what the flame eats to stay alive. You can smell the sweetness of the honey in the air. It is a very clean and healthy smell. It makes you think of the bees working in the summer, gathering the spirit of the sun and hiding it in the wax. Now, in the middle of the deepest winter, that sun is being let out again. The light from the candle makes the shadows of the bedposts look like giant trees reaching up to the ceiling. These shadows move very slowly as the candle burns down. It is a way of telling time without a clock. You can see how much of the wax has been used and how much of the night is left. The night watchman knows that when the candle is halfway gone, the dawn is not far away. It is a comforting thought. The little flame is a promise that the sun still exists, even if it is hidden behind the curve of the frozen earth. You think about the night shift again. In other parts of the castle, the guards are using torches made of wood and tar. Those torches are loud and smoky, and they throw big, scary shadows. But here, the Lord has the quietest light of all. The beeswax candle is a luxury of silence. It shows that in the room within a room, everything is designed to be as calm as possible. There is no need for big, bright lights here. The only thing the Lord needs to see is the way to his pillow. The great frost is still out there. You can hear the wind give a long, low moan as it passes the high windows of the tower. It sounds like a ghost that is lost and cold. But the candle flame does not even shiver. The air inside the room is so still that the flame stands perfectly straight, like a little golden soldier. The tapestries on the walls and the heavy door have done their job. They have made a place where even a tiny flame can feel safe. You feel a sense of pride in the room's strength. You notice how the light reflects off the polished surface of the iron mortise. It creates a second, smaller light on the table. The iron is dark and strong, and it holds the candle firmly. You think about the blacksmith who made the holder. He would have spent a whole morning at his anvil, shaping the hot metal to make sure the cup was the perfect size. It is another small piece of the castle's machinery of comfort. Every object, no matter how small, has a story of work and care behind it. The warmth of the candle is very small, but if you put your hand near it, you can feel a tiny bit of heat. It is a delicate warmth, like the breath of a small bird. You realize that the room within a room is full of these different kinds of heat. There is the big, roaring heat of the fireplace, there is the soaking, deep heat of the bed, and there is this tiny spiritual heat of the candle. They all play their part. The candle is there to guide the spirit through the dark hours of the night. You feel your own eyes getting a bit heavy. The rhythm of the tiny flame is very hypnotic. It pulls at your thoughts, making them slow and soft. You find yourself thinking about the summer again, about the green grass and the warm rain. The candle is a bridge to those memories. It is a tiny piece of the sun that you can keep in your room. It is a very beautiful thing to have when the world has turned to ice. The wax continues to melt, and a single drop runs down the side of the candle like a golden tear. It hits the iron mortise and cools instantly, turning back into a hard, yellow bomb. This shows you how cold the air in the room is, even with the fire. The room within a room is only warm because the heat is being trapped and held. The candle is a reminder that without the work of the night shift, the cold would win in a heartbeat. You are the watchman, and you see the struggle between the little light and the big dark. You take a slow, deep breath. The scent of the beeswax is very strong now. It feels like it is filling up your head, making everything feel peaceful and light. You are ready to see the fire fade into red coals. You are ready to see the night reach its end. But for now, you just watch the candle. It is a steady and faithful friend. It does not ask for anything. It only gives its light and its sweetness until it is gone. The watch continues, and the little flame stands tall, a golden leaf in the heart of the tower. You stand perfectly still in the middle of the room. The candle on the table is the only thing giving off light, and it is very little. You turn your head toward the wall where the window slit is hidden behind the heavy tapestries. For the first time tonight, you really listen to what is happening outside. The great frost is not quiet. It has a voice, and that voice is the wind. It is a long, low sound that starts far away on the frozen fields and builds up until it hits the stone tower with a giant thump. It sounds like a big, invisible hand is pushing against the castle, trying to see if any of the stones are loose. This is a simple historical fact. The walls of a castle tower like this one were often 12 feet thick. That is as wide as a small room. They were built that way so that big stones thrown by enemies would just bounce off. But during a winter like this, those thick walls do something else. They act like a giant sponge for the cold. The stone soaks up the freezing air all day and all night. Even though you are warm inside the room within a room, you know that just a few feet away, the stone is so cold it would freeze the skin off your hand if you touched it. The tower is a fortress against men, but it is also a fortress against the weather. You hear the wind change its tune. It moves from a low groan to a high, thin whistle. This happens when the air is forced through the narrow arrow slits you saw on your way up the stairs. It sounds like a flute being played by a giant. The sound is sharp and lonely. It reminds you that out there, the world is empty and white. There are no people walking the roads. There are no carts moving through the woods. There is only the wind and the ice. You feel a shiver go down your back, even though the air in the room is warm. It is the kind of shiver that comes from knowing you are safe while something dangerous is happening just outside. High above your head, on the very top of the tower roof, you hear a different sound. It is a sharp metal screeching. This is your microhistory detail for this part of the night. It is the sound of the iron weather vane. In the Middle Ages, many towers had a wind vane shaped like a rooster or a cockerel made of heavy black iron. As the wind shifts and blows from the north, the metal rooster turns on its pole. Because of the freezing cold, the grease on the pole has turned hard, and the metal makes a loud crying sound every time it moves. It sounds like a bird screaming in the dark. It is a lonely, cold sound that tells the night shift guards which way the storm is moving. You look at the heavy tapestries. They are perfectly still. Even though the wind is screaming outside and the iron rooster is crying on the roof, the air inside the room does not move. The woolen walls are doing their job. They are holding the silence. You realize that silence is a kind of luxury. In the village, the houses are made of wood and mud, and the wind blows right through the walls. The people there can hear the snow hitting the ground and the trees snapping in the woods. But here, the Lord has bought himself silence. He has used thick stone and heavy cloth to build a place where the world cannot reach him. Take a moment to just listen to the difference between the outside and the inside. Outside, there is the howling, the screeching of the metal rooster, and the rattling of the wooden window shutters. It is a world of noise and movement. But inside, there is only the soft crackle of the dying fire and the tiny, steady flame of the beeswax candle. This contrast is the heart of the room within a room. You feel like you are in a bubble of peace. The noise of the great frost only makes the quiet of the room feel deeper. It is like being in a boat on a stormy sea, but a boat that never rocks and never leaks. You are in the safest place in the kingdom. You think about the night shift guards again. They are standing on the battlements, right where that wind is at its strongest. They have to lean into the wind just to keep from being blown over. Their iron helmets must feel like buckets of ice on their heads. They hear the metal rooster screeching right above them, and they see the white snow swirling in the dark. They are the ones who face the wind so the Lord doesn't have to. You feel a deep sense of respect for them. They are like the outer skin of the castle, taking the hit so the inside stays soft and warm. The wind hits the tower again, and this time you feel a very tiny shake in the floor. It is not a scary shake, but it shows you how much power the storm has. The castle is a giant, but even a giant can feel the wind. You look at the bed with its velvet curtains. Inside that space, the Lord probably doesn't even feel the shake. He is cushioned by the feathers in the wall. He is in the very center of the giant's heart. He is the most protected person in the world tonight. You move closer to the fireplace. The wind is also talking to the chimney. You can hear a low hooting sound as the air rushes across the top of the stone flue. It makes the red coals in the hearth glow a little brighter for a second, as if the wind is trying to blow on them from far away. A tiny puff of grey ash falls onto the hearth. You see how the fire and the wind are connected, even though they are enemies. The wind wants to put the fire out, but the chimney uses the wind to pull the smoke away. It is a clever design that has worked for hundreds of years. The sound of the great frost is a heavy sound. It feels like it has weight. It is the sound of millions of snowflakes and thousands of trees and the giant frozen sea. It is a sound that makes humans feel very small. But when you look around the room, you see that humans have found a way to be big. We have built these towers. We have woven these cloths. We have tamed the fire. The room within a room is our answer to the wind. It is our way of saying that we will not be cold, and we will not be afraid. You feel a sense of calm. The noise outside is just a reminder of how good you have it inside. It is like the sound of rain on a tin roof, but much more serious. The screeching of the iron rooster and the hooting of the chimney are just background music for the night. They don't bother the peace of the chamber. They only make the warmth of the bed and the sweetness of the candle feel more precious. You are the watchman, and you are keeping track of both worlds. You know what the wind is doing, but you also know that the silence is winning. You take a slow breath. Your watch is almost over. The night is at its deepest point, and the world is waiting for the first hint of grey in the sky. But for now, the wind is the king of the outside, and the silence is the king of the inside. You stay in your spot, listening to the two kings talk to each other through 12 feet of stone. The watch continues, and the tower stands strong. You feel safe. You feel warm. And you feel the power of the quiet. The great frost can howl all it wants. The room within a room is a fortress that will never break. You stand in the very center of the room, and for a moment you do not move a single muscle. You just stay there, breathing in and breathing out. You feel like you are standing at the heart of a giant, sleeping animal. The tower is still, the fire is low, and the bed is a dark, warm island in the middle of the wooden floor. You look around at the walls and the ceiling, and you realize something very important. You are not just in a bedroom. You are inside a clever machine made of wood, cloth, and stone. You are inside the room within a room, and right now it is the safest place on the planet. This is a simple historical fact. A private room like this was often called a solar. The word comes from an old word for the sun. Even though it is the middle of the night and the great frost is everywhere, this room was built to catch as much sunlight as possible during the day. It was the place where the lord and lady could go to get away from the noise and the smell of the great hall. In a castle, everyone lived together in the big hall, but only the most important people had a solar. It was a room for quiet, for thinking, and most importantly, for staying warm. It was the only place in the whole castle where you could truly be alone. You think about all the layers that are between you and the winter. You count them in your head. First, there is the thick stone of the tower. Then there is the air pocket behind the tapestries. Next, there is the heavy wool of the tapestries themselves. Then you have the wooden panels on the walls. Inside the room, you have the thick rugs on the floor. Then you have the wooden frame as the bed. After that, there are the heavy velvet curtains. Inside the curtains, there are the wool blankets. Under the blankets, there are the linen sheets. And inside the sheets, there is the fur-lined nightshirt. It is like a set of wooden dolls that fit inside each other, smaller and smaller, until you reach the person in the middle. You walk over to the small table where the candle is burning. Next to the candle, you see a small, beautiful object. It is a cup made of silver with 2 large handles, one on each side. This is your microhistory detail for this part of the night. It is called a posset cup. Inside the cup is a warm drink called a posset. This was a special treat that people had before they went to sleep. It was made of hot milk mixed with a little bit of ale or wine, and then spiced with ginger, cinnamon, and a tiny bit of sugar. The heat of the drink would make the milk curdle a little bit, creating a thick, creamy top that was very filling and very warm. You reach out and touch the silver handle of the cup. It is warm from the liquid inside. You can smell the sharp, sweet scent of the cinnamon and the spicy kick of the ginger. In the Middle Ages, spices like these were very rare and cost a lot of money. They were brought on ships from faraway lands, where the sun always shines. To have a cup of posset was a way of drinking the sun. It warmed the belly and made the blood feel thick and happy. It was the final bit of heat that the Lord would take into the bed with him. It was a liquid blanket for the inside of the body. Take a moment to just reflect on the feeling of being completely protected. The room is so quiet that you can hear the tiny hiss of the candle wick. You feel a sense of luck that is very deep. You know that outside, the world is a hard and frozen place. You know that there are people huddling in the great hall, trying to find a bit of warmth in the straw. But here, everything has been prepared for you. The night shift has worked for hours to make this one room perfect. They have carried the wood, fluffed the feathers, warmed the copper, and brewed the posset. You are the one who gets to enjoy the result of all that work. You feel a great weight of peace on your shoulders. It is a good weight, like the heavy woolen blankets. You look at the bed curtains again. They look so solid in the dim light. They are the final wall. You think about how clever it is to build a room that is just for sleeping. We think of a bed as a piece of furniture, but to the people in this castle, it is a building. It is a house for the night. Within these four posts, the Lord is the king of his own tiny country. No one can bother him, and the cold cannot find him. It is a place where he can finally put down his sword and his worries. The air in the solar feels heavy and still. It is a very different feeling than the air on the stairs. On the stairs, the air was moving, always looking for a way to steal your heat. But here, the air is your friend. It is holding the scent of the beeswax and the spices. It is staying still so that you can stay warm. You realize that stillness is the most important part of the room within a room. If the air moves, you get cold. If the air stays still, you stay warm. It is a very simple secret, but it is the secret that keeps people alive during the Great Frost. You think about the night shift workers again. They're like the gears in a clock. You don't see them most of the time, but without them, the clock would stop. They are the ones who make sure the solar stays a solar. They keep the fire going just enough so the stones don't get too cold. They check the window shutters to make sure they are tied tight. They are the invisible guards of the Lord's peace. You feel a sense of connection to them. You are all part of the same team, working together to keep the dark and the cold away. You look at the silver posset cup one more time. The light of the candle reflects off the polished metal, making a tiny dancing spot of light on the wooden table. It looks like a little star. You think about how much beauty there is in this room. The carvings on the wood, the pictures on the tapestries, the sparkle of the silver, and the red of the velvet. It is not just about being warm. It is about being surrounded by things that are beautiful and well made. When the world outside is grey and dead, the beauty inside the room gives the heart something to hold on to. You feel a deep sense of calm. Your heart is beating slowly, and your breath is steady. You are no longer the cold watchman who was shivering in the wind. You are part of the warmth. You are the witness to the room within a room. You have seen every layer, from the giant stones of the tower to the tiny grains of sugar in the posset. You understand now how a person can sleep through a winter that is strong enough to break a tree. It is not a miracle. It is a craft. It is the craft of staying warm. The fire gives a very soft pop, and a tiny bit of red light glows in the hearth. The shadows move just a little bit, and then they are still again. The room is waiting for the morning, but it is not in a hurry. The night is a time for rest, and in this room, rest is the most important thing. You take a slow step back from the table, feeling the soft wool of the rug under your boots. You look at the bed, the room within a room, and you know that everything is ready. You feel a sense of pride in the castle. It is a strong building, and it has done its job well. It has held back the great frost for another night. And inside the castle, the solar has done its job too. It has been a sanctuary, a holy place of warmth and quiet. You are the watchman, and you have seen the victory of the human spirit. You've seen how we take the things we find: stone, wood, wool, and fur, and turn them into a home. The watch continues, and the night is very deep. The world is asleep, and you are the only one who sees the beauty of the silence. You stay in your spot, a quiet guardian in the golden light of the beeswax candle. You feel safe, you feel warm, and you feel the peace of the fortress. The great frost is still out there, but in here, it is only a memory. You are ready for the final moments of the watch, the time when the night turns into the morning. But for now, you just enjoy the stillness of the room within a room. You are home. You turn your gaze away from the table and the silver cup, looking back toward the stone fireplace one last time. The great fire that was roaring when you first entered the room has changed. The tall, dancing yellow flames have mostly disappeared. They have done their work of heating the room and the bed. Now, the fire has settled down into something deeper and more quiet. The big oak logs have broken apart into thousands of glowing red pieces. These are the coals. They look like a pile of bright, burning jewels sitting on the red brick floor of the hearth. This is a simple historical fact. In the Middle Ages, people did not think of a fire as just a pile of burning wood. They thought of the fire as a living thing that needed to eat and sleep, just like a person. They believed that when the flames went out and the red coals remained, the fire was going to sleep. They also believed that as long as there was a glow in the hearth, the room was protected from bad spirits and the night air. The glowing heart of the fire was like a silent guard that stayed awake all night long. Even when the Lord was deep inside his velvet curtains, you see a long, black metal tool leaning against the stone wall of the fireplace. It has a heavy wooden handle and a two-pronged end that looks like a giant's tooth. This is your microhistory detail for this part of the night. It is called a fire fork. A servant from the night shift used this tool earlier to push the heavy logs together so they would burn better. Now, the fire fork is cold, but you can still see the marks of the heat on the iron. It is a simple, strong tool that has been used for hundreds of winters. It is part of the night shift kit, used to manage the heat and make sure the fire stays alive until morning. You move a bit closer to the hearth, feeling the gentle, steady heat. It is not the sharp, stinging heat of a flame, but a soft, soaking heat that comes from the very center of the coals. You look at the colors. There is a deep, dark red, like the color of a plum. There is a bright, hot orange, like the skin of a pumpkin. And in the very hottest spots, there is a pale, shimmering white. The coals are covered in a very thin layer of grey ash that looks like soft dust or fallen snow. When the air moves, the ash blows away for a second, and the red glow underneath becomes even brighter. Take a moment to just watch the light slowly fade. The room is becoming much darker now. The orange light no longer reaches the high corners of the ceiling or the far edges of the tapestries. The shadows are growing, moving in from the walls like a slow, dark tide. The only things you can see clearly are the things close to the hearth and the small circle of light from the beeswax candle. This fading of the light is very peaceful. It tells your brain that the day is truly over and that there is nothing left to do but rest. The night watchman is the only one who sees this final change in the room. The sound of the fire has changed too. It no longer pops and snaps with loud noises. Instead, it makes a very soft, crumbling sound, like dry leaves being stepped on. Every few minutes, a piece of a log will break and settle into the ash, sending a tiny cloud of sparks up the chimney. These sparks are like little stars that live for only a second before they disappear into the black dark of the flue. You find yourself waiting for the next spark, watching the red coals move and shift as they slowly turn into ash. The smell of the room is changing as well. The sweet smell of the juniper and the fresh oak has turned into a deeper, earthier scent of wood smoke and cooling stone. It is a very heavy smell that makes you feel grounded. It reminds you of the history of the castle and all the winters that have come and gone. This fireplace has seen 1,000 fires burn down to coals, and it will see 1,000 more. The stone holds the memory of all that heat, and it lets it out slowly into the room, keeping the great frost at bay even as the light disappears. You look at the shadows of the bedposts. They have become very long and thin, stretching across the rugs like the shadows of trees in the late afternoon. The red velvet of the bed curtains looks almost black now, and the gold tassels have lost their shine. The room feels much smaller and more private in the dark. It is as if the walls have moved closer, wrapping you in a blanket of shadow. You feel very safe. The darkness is not scary here. It is a soft and kind darkness that is meant for sleep. You think about the night shift guard who will come in the morning. He will find the hearth full of cold grey ash. He will use a small shovel to clear it away and then start a new fire with fresh wood and dry straw. But for now, that is a long way off. The night still belongs to the red coals. They are the heart of the tower, and they are doing their job perfectly. They are holding the line against the winter. You feel a sense of pride in the fire's endurance. It has fought hard all evening, and now it is resting, still giving off its warmth to the room. The great frost is still out there, but you can hardly hear it now. The wind has settled into a low, steady hum, and the iron rooster on the roof has stopped its screeching. The world is waiting. The trees are frozen, the river is solid ice, and the stars are cold and bright. But here, in the solar, the world is red and warm. You are the only person awake to see this beautiful moment. You are the guardian of the fading light. You see how the room within a room is not just about the bed. It is about the whole cycle of the night, from the first spark of the fire to the last glow of the coals. You feel the warmth of the room on your skin. It is a very gentle feeling now, like the warmth of a sun that is setting behind a hill. Your own body feels heavy and relaxed. You have seen everything there is to see. You have seen the way the Lord stays warm, the way the night shift works, and the way the castle stands strong. You have seen the cleverness of the human mind and the beauty of the things we make. You feel a deep sense of satisfaction. The watch has been a good one. You take a slow, deep breath, and you can taste the faint smoke in the air. It's a clean and honest taste. You look at the hearth one last time. The red coals are starting to be covered by more and more grey ash. The glow is becoming smaller. The light is fading away, bit by bit, into the dark. It is a very natural and quiet end to the day. You feel ready to let the night take over completely. The room within a room is sealed, the bed is warm, the posset is drunk, and the fire is sleeping. The watch is nearly over. The morning will bring the sun and the work of the new day. But for now, there is only the peace of the tower. You stay in the shadows, watching the last of the red light dance on the wooden floor. You feel a connection to every watchman who has stood in this room before you. You're part of the history of the night. You are the one who stays awake so that others can dream. You feel safe, you feel warm, and you feel the weight of the night pulling you toward the end of your shift. The great frost is defeated, and the warmth has won. You stand in the very center of the solar, and you feel the weight of the night finally coming to an end. The room is almost completely dark now. The red coals in the fireplace are covered in a thick blanket of grey ash, and only a tiny deep red glow shows through the cracks. The beeswax candle has burned down until it is just a small pool of liquid gold in the iron holder. The shadows are long and heavy, filling every corner of the room, but you do not feel afraid of the dark. This is a warm, kind dark. It is the dark of the room within a room, and it is full of the peace that only comes after a long, cold battle against the great frost. You look toward the bed. The heavy velvet curtains are still closed tight, and you know that inside the Lord is sleeping deeply. He is wrapped in the layers of linen, wool, and fur that you watch the night shift prepare. He is safe. The warmth of the copper pan and the heat of his own body have filled that small space, making it as cozy as a summer day. He does not hear the wind, and he does not feel the frost. He is in his own little world. This is the ultimate goal of everything you have seen tonight. The castle, the fire, the tapestries, and the blankets were all built for this one thing, a quiet, safe sleep. You move slowly toward the small table. It is time to put out the last light. On the table, next to the candle, is a small tool made of dark iron. It looks like a tiny metal cone on the end of a thin stick. This is your micro-history detail for the final part of the night. It is called a duker, though some people call it a snuffer. Its job is very simple but very important. Instead of blowing on the candle, which might send hot wax flying or create a lot of smelly smoke, you place the metal cone over the flame. The cone cuts off the air and the fire goes out instantly. It is a quiet and clean way to end the light. You pick up the duker and hold it over the tiny flame for a second. You feel the last bit of heat from the beeswax. Then you lower the cone. The flame disappears, and for a moment the room is in total darkness. You stay perfectly still, letting your eyes adjust. Slowly, very slowly, you start to see the room again. But the light is not orange anymore. It is a very soft, very pale blue. This light is coming from the narrow window slit behind the tapestries. It is the first hint of the morning. The sun is still far below the hills, but its light is starting to find its way through the great frost. This is a simple historical fact. In the Middle Ages, the world lived by the sun. There were no ticking clocks on the walls and no phones to tell people when to wake up. People believed that the day began exactly when the sun touched the horizon. This meant that in the winter, the night shift lasted much longer than it did in the summer. The night was the boss of the world during the great frost, but now that boss is stepping down. The blue light is a sign that the watch is almost over. The world is getting ready to wake up and start the work of the day. Take a moment to just reflect on the silence of this hour. This is the quietest time of all. It is about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. Even the wind has stopped its howling, as if it is tired from blowing all night. The castle is as still as a stone. Far below you, in the great hall, the servants are still huddled together, but they will soon be moving to start the morning fires. Out on the walls, the guards are looking at that same blue light, feeling a great relief in their hearts. The night shift is coming to an end. The darkness is moving away, and the ice on the windows is starting to look like silver instead of black. You feel a sense of deep satisfaction. You have been the watchman of the most important room in the castle. You have seen how the room within a room was built, layer by layer, to protect the life inside. You have seen the craft and the care that went into every detail. You know that the Lord will wake up warm and rested, ready to lead his people through another day of the great frost. You have played your part in the history of the night. You have been the witness to the warmth. You walk toward the door of the solar. Your footsteps are silent on the thick rugs. You stop for a second and look back at the bed. The red velvet curtains look soft and mysterious in the blue morning light. They are a monument to comfort. You think about how lucky we are to have these stories of the past. They remind us that even when the world is cold and dark, we can find ways to be safe and warm. We can build our own rooms within rooms. We can take care of each other and keep the fire burning. You reach for the iron handle of the door. It is still cold, but it doesn't feel as sharp as it did before. The air in the room is still warm, held in by the tapestries and the wood. You take one last deep breath of the scent of beeswax and lavender. It is a smell you will never forget. It is the smell of a winter night well spent. You turn the handle and the door opens with a soft, familiar creak. You step out onto the spiral stairs, leaving the solar behind. As you walk down the stairs, you see the blue light getting brighter. It fills the stairwell, making the grey stones look like they are made of ice. But you don't feel the cold as much now. You are carrying the warmth of the solar inside you. You think about the journey you have taken tonight, from the frozen gates to the heart of the tower. It has been a long watch, but it has been a beautiful one. You have seen the night shift do its work, and you have seen the victory of the human spirit over the winter. The great frost is still there, and the world is still white with snow, but the sun is coming. In an hour, the castle will be full of noise again. There will be the sound of wood being chopped, water being poured, and people greeting each other in the great hall. The business of the day will begin, but for now, there is just this quiet, blue moment. It is the bridge between the night and the day. It is the time when the watchman can finally rest. You reach the bottom of the stairs and walk through the great hall. A few servants are starting to move, stretching their arms and rubbing the sleep from their eyes. They look at you and nod. They know you have been on the watch. You walk toward the main door and push it open. The air outside is crisp and clean. The sky is a beautiful pale blue, and the stars are fading away. You see the frost on the trees sparkling like diamonds. The world is waking up, and it is beautiful. The night has been long and the air has been cold, but you have been safe. You've been held in the heart of the castle, wrapped in the history and the warmth of the past. The heavy velvet curtains of the world are being pulled back now, letting in the soft light of the morning. You can feel your own body getting lighter, your thoughts moving as slowly as the drifting snow. The great frost is turning into a gentle mist, and the hard stone is turning into a soft dream. You have seen the care, you have felt the heat, and you have heard the silence. Everything is in its right place. The fire has done its work, the blankets are heavy and kind, and the room within a room has kept the world away. You are no longer a watchman, you are a part of the morning. You can let go of the night now. You can let the warmth of the story stay with you as you drift into your own quiet sleep. The world is waking up, but you are finding your rest. You are safe, you are warm, and the watch is over. The castle is standing strong, and the sun is ready to climb the hills. The sun is rising. The gates are opening. The watch is ended.